Good evening. Welcome to the Board of Commissioners' regular workshop meeting. Today is Wednesday, February 26, 2025. It is 6 p.m. City Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Brooks,
Here.
Vice Mayor Taglerini,
Here.
Commissioner Kerr,
Here.
Commissioner McGinn,
Here.
Commissioner Gabay.
Here.
All are present.
Public comment. Public participation is encouraged. If you are addressing the commission, step to the podium and state your name and address for the record, and the organization or group you represent. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes and do not include any topic on the agenda. Public comment on agenda items will be allowed when they come up. If you would like someone at the city to follow up on a comment or question made at the meeting, you may fill out a comment card with contact information and give it to the city manager. Comment cards are available at the back table in the commission chambers. Completing a comment card is not mandatory. Do we have any public comment? With no public comment, we will begin Board of Commissioners Flood Awareness Week proclamation. City Manager? Oh, do you want me to read that?
Either way, but
Proclamation. Whereas the city of Madeira Beach has experienced severe weather in the past in the form of extreme rainfall or tropical system events resulting in flooding throughout the city of Madeira Beach, and this flooding has caused damage and flood losses to the homes and buildings in all areas, whether they are high-risk special flood hazard areas or low to moderate risk flood zones. And whereas the city of Madeira Beach is a voluntary participant in the National Flood Insurance Program that provides residents with the opportunity to protect themselves against flood loss through the purchase of flood insurance at reduced insurance premium rates, as well as setting higher regulatory standards to reduce the flood risk and potential flood damage to their property. And whereas the reduction of loss of life and property damage can be achieved when appropriate flood preparedness, control, and mitigation measures are taken before a flood. And whereas public education and awareness of potential weather hazards and methods of protection are critical to the health, safety, and welfare of residents, the Florida Floodplain Managers Association declared the week of March 3rd through the 9th, 2025 as Flood Awareness Week to promote awareness and increase knowledge of flood risk, the availability of flood insurance, flood protection methods, and how to prepare for emergencies. Now therefore I, Anne Marie Brooks, Mayor of the City of Madeira Beach, Florida, in coordination with FEMA and Pinellas County, do hereby proclaim March 3rd through the 9th, 2025 as Flood Awareness Week in the City of Madeira Beach, and encourage the citizens of the City of Madeira Beach to increase their knowledge of how to protect themselves and their property from flooding. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Madeira Beach to be affixed on this 26th day of February 2025. Next on the agenda is Key to the City.
I think Mayor and Commission, this was brought up, I think, by Commissioner Gouvet, about the process for looking to issue the key to the city to
the state representative in our neighborhood, and I would love to see if we could invite him to this chamber and hand them basically the key to the city of Madeira Beach for job well done. Senator DeSegli, Nick DeSegli, and Linda Cheney, state representative, have really done an amazing job in promoting and helping our city. So I would love to see if we could possibly have those keys dedicated to them at a public hearing.
Do we have any public comment? Commissioners, comments?
I don't have any questions.
I don't know much about the subject, to be honest with you. I mean, yes, they both have brought, especially Senator Cheney, or Representative Cheney, bringing a lot of funding to us. But I don't know how to evaluate the key to the city. Be a new subject for me.
I think it's a great idea.
Thank you.
I guess I do have a question. Have we done this before? And if so, is there some criteria?
That's what I was going to ask.
It
Robert.
just seemed, sorry,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
that was my question. Have we done it before? And if so, is there some criteria?
Yeah, and I
Because-
think City Clerk, Clara, go ahead.
Yeah. In the BOC policy handbook, of course, the mayor presents the key to the city. And there have been several, if you go into Laserfish and put in maybe quotations, key to the city, it'll bring up where the Board of Commissioners have presented them. And I don't think there was a set criteria, but I think it would, me personally think it would be a good idea, because at the workshop in March, you will have an opportunity to say, you know, go through your BOC policy handbook and recommend any changes. So I'll send that to you through email, and it'll also be published where you get it early.
If you-
And so, and do something like that in,
I remember a few years ago, we had Helen England. She had just turned 100. And she had been one of our long-term citizens. And sadly, she's passed on since. She was a mother of a good friend of mine. So she came in here and we gave her a key to the city. It's just a token of appreciation. It's it's just like saying thank you for all the wonderful work you're doing and the achievements.
Well, in that manner, though, I would imagine that we would have to have some sort of declaration and list their accomplishments for the city. Who would put
Yes.
that together? Who would research that and put that together?
I think that's important to me too. I think that having a specific criteria, so
Yes.
I'm not saying no. I mean, key to the city is a great idea. I just want to make sure we have at least a discussion about who's gotten it in the past. What would what do they all have in common that we could use to create a criteria so that we can be fair and equal moving forward?
I'll be more than happy to come up with the criteria
That'd be great.
for both.
And
Yes.
Clara, would it be possible to get a list of some of the people who have received it in the past?
yes, sir, yes, sir.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
we'll research
Yes.
who and what if there was any criteria or what was discussed. I think we would have something in the minutes or certainly videos. But I know anecdotally, it's been communicated to me, I haven't looked at the videos or the minutes, that prior commissions, there have been some who seem to give a lot of them. It was a much more regular occurrence, and then it kind of slowed down considerably. But my suggestion, as you've discussed, set up some sort of criteria or process and how they would, but we can do the research and come up with
What I'll
that.
do is do the research, and I'll send to the city manager of what I locate, and then he can pass on to you all what his recommendation would be, or whatever, you know, for the meeting.
Well, I just
Putting
think
it on
we-
the next
yeah,
meeting, or,
it'd be very important to say, you know, if we're presenting this, we'd have to list all the reasons why we're presenting it,
Correct.
why they've gone above and beyond
yes.
to be awarded any award,
I'll list each person and the
where
purpose they
it's
stated.
not almost meaningless.
I look at it as excuse me, as a two-way street. So we can also get some recognition in Tallahassee. You know, name of the city of Madeira Beach will be up in Tallahassee. Probably if we have a key to the city, they may even hang it on their wall, and people that visit them, they can see Madeira Beach. So it's not just generally not going to be, okay, well, thank you, you've done a wonderful job, which it will be, but we also benefit from, you know, their name and name recognition.
I agree. So we can have that information probably,
Tomorrow.
okay.
Yeah, I'll send it to him. I'll look it up
And
and
then,
list everyone that I find that was presented a key to the city and list the purpose. Because
Okay.
like you said, you know, it was a good purpose.
The criteria may take a couple weeks, though.
Yes, so probably we would need to
Well-
then bring this back to discuss at our next workshop.
Yeah, or I mean, as
Or, I
one
mean-
starting point could be when you discuss your policy handbook, as Clara stated. I
Right.
think and that'll be on March,
March, the workshop, regular
Right, that would
workshop.
be
the
our,
26th, I'm sorry.
yeah.
No, isn't it the day?
Yeah, March the 26th.
The 26th, thank you.
So at our
Sorry.
next workshop.
Yes.
At our next workshop, we could talk about it, and
Okay.
I mean, I already know some of their accomplishments, but it would be interesting to have them
Okay.
have all that information and do that.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is Task Force Committee.
I think this was from the commission to
I think,
add, I'm not sure.
Commissioner, I think that this was your idea, so you,
Yes, so I think the more citizen involvement we have in our community, the better input we can get from them, ideas. Certainly, more minds and more heads put together, we can come up with a good path in how to address some of the concerns that the citizens might have. They can come actually in an open forum, because somehow, right now, what I see is that I see a lot of information on Facebook, and no one's here in our public hearings to express any opinions, and that's sort of concerning. I have talked to people, residents, and I've said, if you have any concerns, if you have any questions, if you have any ideas, please come up to the podium, please express to us. Somebody will get back with you. It's happened a couple of times, but it's not happening regularly. So if having a task force group committee to basically be out there and let the citizens know how hard this city is trying and this council is trying for our image and betterment of the city, I think they'll be better informed.
do we have any public comment? Commissioners, comments on this?
I have a bunch of questions. Who chooses the members of the task force? Who supervises or wrangles them? And that kind of thing. I generally like the idea. I think that's good. There's so much chatter on Nextdoor, which I do not subscribe to. So much chatter there on Facebook, and people are saying things that are simply not true. And a task force, but somebody would have to wrangle them and figure out how they're going to get the correct news to residents. So I appreciate this topic. I think we need to sit down. We need to put our minds to establishing the details of how this would work. Overall, I think it's good if it's going to bring truth and facts forward.
Education.
Education.
Would this be like a social media committee where they're monitoring and reporting and creating files of information that is out there, and either bring it to the city that the city can prepare a rebuttal, or?
No,
or is it-
I was basically thinking maybe the group or committee can meet once every quarter, and they could possibly meet in this city chamber. And I would certainly like to volunteer to be a part of that committee. And basically share ideas and opinions and bring it to the board and explain to this board, what the committee is thinking.
Well, as a discussion, I mean, that's basically, there would be the responsibilities to gather the social, whether it's Facebook Nextdoor or whatever, or sitting at the local restaurant tavern and collecting, being a committee that everybody would go to with their wish list, with their comments. They're doing this well, they're doing that not so well. What about updates on the talk of the day, but I don't know how
We will have set agendas. We
Yeah.
will have set agendas, and we will, have citizens input.
yeah, I mean, if you wanted to head that up,
I'll be more than happy to.
great.
I would recommend against that. We can have a commissioner to be a liaison, but you wouldn't want the commissioner to be actually running a task force committee, because that would push whoever is going to participate in the direction of wanting to please the commissioner. So I would stay away from that. There's not many committees, groups, boards that I'm aware of statewide that a acting or sitting commissioner would actually be on a subcommittee or a task force unless it's in a liaison effort. In other words, sitting quietly in the back of the room, listening to what's being said, and report back to the commission as to what's going on if the task force isn't actually doing that. This is just, it looks to me like it's adding another layer between you and the residents. That's what you're for, to hear their concerns. They could come here instead of going out and gathering them and bringing them back in a different form. So-
Liaison would be fine. I just basically would like to get group of citizens together to share their ideas and,
But it would be up to I guess, the general public to form this committee. Or, I mean, the city's not really forming the committee.
well, it's just like a regular committee. We'll have it put together by certain group of people, and we'll pick a chairperson and vice chair. We're looking at maybe a committee of 10. I'm not planning on being a manager of the committee. It has to be a thing, not a person. A system, it will be a system. Because right now, and I'm sure you folks see on social media, and a lot of those things I see, those folks don't even live here. They just like chatter, they like to talk about things that don't even exist, and there are a lot of misinformation out there, there are a lot of wrong ideas, I hear it, and I'm out there talking to them, and I'm saying, this is not really the way it is, you guys need to come out here and talk to the board, and no one's showing up. So,
We all received an email this week from a resident who, most of the questions that were asked in the email, if they attended these meetings or even watched these meetings, they would have had the answers to 90% of the questions that were in the email.
I actually,
You-
I
you-
actually responded.
You did?
I did.
And he
But
he
it took
forwarded
me,
it.
it took me a couple, oh.
Yes,
you-
he did. He forwarded it.
Oh,
So I saw your
okay,
answer.
so I mean, I
and-
took some time and I
Yes, you
asked
did.
Mr. Gomez to make sure I wasn't giving any bad information and then more came.
Right,
And I said, these are the same questions.
right.
But I think that is our responsibility.
Correct.
When somebody directly asks us, hey, address this, and first of all, I let them know that I did not consider Nextdoor Madeira to be an official platform for municipality information.
I would agree with that.
And then I did the best I could to answer. I think that is our responsibility.
I thought you did a great job answering it, but
Never seen it.
when I read it, so I read that when the email came and I read the email. And as I read it, I'm like, well, we just talked about that. We just talked about that. We just talked about that. So those were all things that we had discussed. And before I could reply, I got your reply. So then I didn't see a need to reply on the reply because it was well-written.
Right.
So,
And Mr. Trask could speak to this. Once you've seen his reply, if you reply, does that
Right.
become a sunshine
correct, correct.
issue? Because you're not allowed to reply
No.
on social media.
You should avoid that on any matter that's going to come back before the commission where official action is going to be taken. That doesn't mean that, for example, the vice mayor talking about the Rays having won the game last night, and then the mayor said, yeah, I was there, and that type of thing. It has to be something that comes back before the commission for
So
actual action.
Just to clarify, Vice Mayor Taglerini did not reply to something on social media. We received an email from a resident. He replied to that resident. He did not copy any of us. That resident then replied, and I didn't pay attention, but I thought we were all copied on his reply where he asked additional questions. I would not have replied once Vice Mayor Taglerini replied because of that that reason. Once there was a reply and I was aware of that, I was not going to reply, because then that would have been a conversation that that resident could have then shared and would have, no.
Yeah, you have to
So-
worry about that liaison contact as well, feeding information from a commissioner to a person back to another commissioner.
Right.
So that circle, that's the thing that you should try to avoid on matters that are going to come back before the commission for action. So
Right.
be very careful.
Commissioner, do you have any comments?
Not at this time.
So I think the task force idea is an interesting idea. I share some of the same concerns in how you choose who those people are going to be, how do you keep them on topic, how do you, all of that. It would be interesting to know for all of what we hear or see on social media. And I don't do Nextdoor. I'm on Nextdoor because I registered so that I could figure out if I could see the city's communications, and I couldn't figure that out. So, so I am technically on Nextdoor, but I haven't read anything on there. At any rate, I am on Facebook, and I do read a lot of the things that come on Facebook, and I agree with you, Commissioner. A lot of those comments are from people who do not even live in our city. But I don't know, maybe it would be interesting to see if the city could put out something to see who would be interested in participating in a committee like that, and then that would help us better understand how to push that forward if it's, because we can't do it. We can't be a part of a task force,
You-
right?
Kind of doing.
Right now,
Being a part of a task force?
no, you're here open for the public
Oh,
to
right, right,
come,
right, yes.
express their concerns, ask their questions. So this is just putting another layer of
Of-
bureaucracy between you and the people. You're going to gather information, have them do something with it, and then bring it to
Bring it
you.
back.
So,
How would you even manage that?
I mean, it would have to be something specific and, I mean, in local government, historically, a task force is something specific to a task. We're going to look at our master plan and we'll have a task force to address the master plan, or a firm to hire, something specific. This sounds kind of general, other than, sounds like a voice to communicate certain information to avoid misinformation, miscommunication in the general. I mean, that's kind of what it sounds to me, but I think it would need to be something specific. Because you would need to have guidelines as to who you're going to, are they going to apply? What, can they use existing application, but what is it going to do? What will the purpose be of those members?
Yes.
I noticed in the past, like for the marina, they had a marina ad hoc committee. John's Pass, they had a marina ad hoc committee. For the library, they had a marina ad hoc committee. We got some of those stuff already in Laserfish, but not all. And right now, but, and I think they had their meetings in the chamber and minutes were taken and stuff like that. I mean, they kept it in the sunshine. That way the conversations could be controlled and logged.
But those were specific to, just like the city
Yeah.
manager was
The
saying, specific
master plan
to
and
a
something like
task
that,
of,
yes.
that they were specifically about something.
I know the John's Pass, like promoting John's Pass and having events, activities, having a business association forum of the business owners. I've read some of those minutes, and that's what it was called. It was the John's Pass Ad hoc Committee or something
Committee,
like that.
Yes.
So you would need, my suggestion is something specific along those lines. It's really up to you. And possibly something that would go, I mean, I don't know if it would go under the BOC policy handbook. I don't remember, Clara, if they can create
I think it
committees,
was created by resolution.
resolution.
we would create a resolution. It would set all the specifics. How big is the board? How many members? How many alternate? When they're going to meet? What their job responsibilities are? Who do they report to? Whether they're going to be paid or not? How they're going to pick their chairman, their vice chairman? We would
Yes.
set that all out in a resolution if you wanted to do it that way.
Right, the city
Yeah.
clerk, accepted, put it advertised and accepted applications and all that stuff for the Board of Commissioners to go through, and they appointed their members.
And remember, it also now requires taking on another responsibility for the city clerk, because someone will have to be there at the meeting, someone will have to take minutes, transcribe those minutes, bring them back to the next meeting, that type of thing. So we have to meet all the sunshine law requirements.
So currently on our, because currently we only have two committees. We have a Civil Service Commission, and we have the Planning Commission. So we have two commissions other than the BOC. Are they both 100% full? Do they have all their
We have
seats
a
filled?
vacancy in the civil service,
Yes,
right?
and it's difficult right now to get a member because there's not many people in town. It had to be a
Right.
city resident.
That's why I was asking, because I'm thinking, just thinking about trying to get people to commit. We've historically had somewhat of trouble filling the commissions. I mean, three of us are running unopposed next month, right? So, I love the idea of having community input. I wish people would come here on this night because it's the opportunity to come and speak and have your voice heard. And I think this commission has done a fantastic job of hearing the residents when they speak and acknowledging and working on whatever topics are brought to us.
If, one other item, we've had over the years an array of different events, activities, even the breakfast with the city manager that we're creating, we're planning to bring those back. We were going to begin the Citizens Academy in October. We've delayed it to this October. We had 22 very interested, eager residents looking to participate. We're going to do that again. So just to remind you of ongoing activities and opportunities when we have had for the master plan meetings regarding the beach, the buoys, the expanding the swim zone, the parking garage. When we've had some of those meetings, we've had very good attendance. We had a very good attendance to the master plan meeting.
Yeah, that's
We
what-
can certainly schedule topic-specific meetings. I know that's not exactly what Commissioner Gouvet was mentioning, but we do offer an awful lot of opportunities. And I can tell you in my 31 years in 4 cities, you have a handful of dedicated residents that do go to workshops, regular meetings. Not everybody can be like Mr. Dillon in the audience, and we certainly appreciate him being here. But typically, we're going to get residents, property owners, business owners, when something may not go their way or something that they may have observed or heard, and they really have an opinion on it.
Correct.
And we could continue to have events, activities, the meetings that I mentioned, and just encourage more people to participate.
Correct.
But
And-
certainly, I'm open to anything that you would like us
So-
to do.
Maybe Commissioner, if the things that you hear in the community, if you had specific topics, and then we could plan a town hall meeting or so that we could have specific meetings, and then the residents would come for that specific meeting. I think a town hall meeting is much more casual. Or like a Saturday morning when you do the informational meeting where people can talk. Because I do think that sometimes the reason people don't come here is because it's formal. And they want to be in a more relaxed setting. And the Saturday morning meetings, or even the Thursday meetings in the evening that are not a commission meeting but are more public oriented, we do get a lot more people who come and participate in those and speak out, and maybe that would be a good way to
Sure,
get that
you know,
accomplished.
again, the intent is for the residents to see this wonderful group of people sitting here, and I mean it wholeheartedly. I'm really enjoying working with this wonderful team. It's a shame that some information's out there, misinformation, and it might be out there because they just don't know, they're not connected. Or maybe they just have other ideas in mind or whatever. So my intent really is for residents to get to know this commission and our goal better. So they can understand that we're not their enemy. We're here to serve public. We're here to serve them, yet I don't think they're viewing it that way. So whatever format, I'll be fine with.
So you come up with a bunch of topics that you see on social media and you share those with Robin. And then, I mean, I do think that that would be, do you agree? What do
Well,
you think of that?
I can see getting it, yeah, if
Yeah.
having a list of, what, somebody to monitor social media, I'll just say, whether it's good, bad, misinformed, not, and maybe be able to put the comments together and put them back out on social media to update the record on items. I see value in that. I just don't, I don't know how you would put it together.
I think that rolls into our next topic.
Well, also, I believe that we should
Yeah.
possibly follow the trash pirates once a month, like breakfast with the city manager. There's so many people involved with the trash pirates every month, once a month. And right after that, we could have a less formal breakfast and information and with the residents. And I think that's a great idea because they have a lot of community involvement. And if we could follow that, then that might be a great idea.
Are we still having the breakfast once a month?
We will. They've been kind of
With the,
just with
A
everything else.
hurricane or two, you know.
We'll
Hey,
try to bring
I-
back
I,
in
I like
in
the wine
April.
and beer in the evenings. I mean, I thought that would, but as nice as that was, the breakfast ones always had some bit of formality in the beginning
Yeah.
that just gave us updates on things.
Well, because Robin always had a topic. Tip for your breakfast with
Yeah,
the
yeah,
city
yes,
manager,
yeah.
you had a topic. So you would present something at the beginning,
Yeah.
which would be a fantastic if you
Give-
see anybody here on the commission
can
that,
give-
that sees or hears things that seem to be problematic for residents. If we shared those things with Robin and he could incorporate those into his
Sure.
breakfast or
But still have the social aspect
Right, still-
afterward.
correct. And if we're all individually sharing topics and he's getting the same topic over and over and over, then he would probably determine that that's more than just a breakfast with the city manager topic. It's a topic that is buzzing so much in the community, we should do a greater presentation or
Yeah.
meeting on it.
And as you said, it's less formal,
Right.
so people can come and hang out and have breakfast and have great discussions. So I think that's a great idea.
Mayor, I appreciate this discussion, after listening to Mr. Travis, Mr. Gomez, and considering the existing opportunities we have, I'm less interested in forming a specific commission because as Mr. Travis said, it's just going to put another buffer between us and the residents. I think using the breakfast, the cocktail hour, the trash pirates, those are all good ideas. And we, as commissioners, just make sure that we're involved
Yeah.
in one of those things so that when misinformation comes up, we can officially set the record straight. And unfortunately, sometimes it comes in the form of emails that are mildly hostile, but I usually try to take time to give thoughtful responses if there's an actual question. It's just a rhetorical question, no. But, so, I mean, that's just the way I'm feeling after this whole discussion.
Let me ask our attorney this question then. Right now, there's a group out there that are scheduled to meet. And could I attend those meetings?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
There are people out there that actually are meeting and talking about the city, and I want to be there to listen and help as much as possible. And if there's any misinformation, I can state it right there and then to public. So I just want to make sure I'm not doing anything wrong.
No, absolutely. You can attend those and participate.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is information officer.
Again, I think this came from the commission. The city a few years ago did budget for a public information officer that was out of the city manager's office. That was removed from the budget prior to my arrival. Currently, I shared with you at previous workshop all the methods that the city uses to disseminate information, which they are substantial. And each department, or the larger main departments from recreation out of my office, the parking, for example, maintain their information on the city's webpage. Megan out of my office kind of maintains the overall of the website, which we're going to look to redesign. We're not changing it, but changing the look and the feel of it. And also the information that's placed out on Facebook. We have asked all the departments to take a look at their websites and remove information that's outdated, no longer applicable, et cetera, and make it much more, easier to find and more relevant, clear, concise, all of that. But in terms of if we created, not sure if this discussion is to consider creating a public information officer citywide or consolidating areas, or however, just keep in mind, we currently do not budget for a specific information officer. I believe you were all aware of that. So again, we'll take your direction, how you would like to proceed. We do, again, a variety of methods that we utilize, and the different departments kind of sending out a variety of information.
Do we have any public comment?
Chuck Dillon, your whole audience. A couple of things that used to be very good, David, was excellent in terms of previously, and I know it spent a lot of time putting together minutes of what went on during the meetings. That was very, very informative, and I'm not sure how much response you got from that. But I believe it sounds like the information officer could kill two birds with one stone in terms of he would be able to decipher what had happened during the meetings. Also, he would be potentially responsible for gathering information from people to express something to specifically, and like you said, their group, offsetting misinformation. The misinformation is terrible. I mean, on the breakfast with the manager were great. I mean, but at the end of the last 4 or 5 months, it's all been, crazy. But yet I think an information officer could be very good, that would take on what David used to do on the emails of the stuff that went on for the meetings. Also potentially stuff that went on in our planning committee meetings. And I'll go back to the thing of where the meetings that we had for the city planning, or the upcoming whole city stuff, they're all staying there, and I got up and I said, well, come to the meetings. You want to know what's going on? Come to the meetings. So I think potentially a information officer could be very good. And in terms of kind of limited, I mean, in terms of, they're not going to be a full-time person. It'd be somebody, a geek that sits on their computer, goes through all the stuff and knows and can potentially filter out emails, or somebody that if you got a question, email. And by the way, our website is down. I tried doing some stuff and the website did not work. And thank you, Robin. There was somebody that had a dumpster in the street, and I sent Robin an email and it got taken care of. So once again, information officer sounds like a great idea, and it could take the stuff off your hand. You could be directly involved with them and say what happens. David, you could be, as to where you used to take care of all that stuff. So I see that as a very good potential possibility. Thank you.
So I'd like to go first on this one, just because I think I'm the reason it's on the agenda. And it was Commissioner Hudson that used to write the minutes after the meeting. And he continued to do that for a while after he was no longer on the commission. Actually, yes, and he would put them on, my understanding was next door, and say that they were the unofficial minutes. And he did a great job. But the reason that I feel like we need an information officer is I do know that there are different department heads who post on social media, and it's not that I don't think they do a good job. It is that I think that when you have a person in a position that is their area of expertise, that's what they do is information. One of the things that was very apparent in the hurricane was delivery of information, getting information out to the community in a consistent, concise manner.
Yep.
So when you have multiple departments or multiple people within an organization who are posting things, everybody speaks differently. So the speak is not consistent. And that creates confusion, and people aren't able to learn the method of communication because it's always different. I feel like we should explore an information officer, what that would cost us. Would it be a part-time job or a full-time job? You know, what is that we need? But I do think we need a professional. Even in talking with county representatives, they have professional people who do that information delivery, and it's a struggle to get the information out. I think I think every community that I've spoken with, after the hurricane, information delivery was difficult. We talked about using text messaging to do information delivery, which I 150% believe we should have, because when your internet's not working, your text messages are. And if there's something that needs to get out to the community, whether it's hurricane related or just flood related or city related, that's an urgent matter. I think that text messaging would be a great way to put it out there. But to me, an information officer, the city used to have one, and he did some things that weren't, if I recall correctly, he did some things they didn't like or something, but there was a person here who did information. You telling me no? I mean, Kurt Presser, wasn't he our information person? Okay.
Yes.
And didn't he get let go by a past commission because of something he did that they didn't like?
Political. He got
Right.
into
I mean, regardless of what it was, it doesn't matter what happened, but I think that that's a role that, in my opinion, I'm just one of five, should be seriously considered. We're a large enough city that information matters. So that's my opinion.
Yeah.
Commissioners?
Mayor, I wonder if there's any other of the barrier islands that has this position, and if so, I wonder if not, could we maybe partner with one or two of the others, if it's not a full-time job, but maybe it would be a full-time job for 2 or 3 barrier islands. And the advantage to that, of course, would be there's so much overlap in information.
Right.
But it would be very specific, but they could also be specific. I like the idea of an information officer. I don't think that we could put that work on somebody that's already on staff. They all have plenty to do. And that person, I think, should work very closely with Mr. Gomez and Clerk Van Bargen. But I think maybe we should explore the idea of sharing it with another barrier island.
I know that Treasure Island has one.
Yep.
I don't know about the other barrier islands, but I would agree with you. We probably could partner because I don't know that the Reddingtons, I mean, they're small, so there's probably an opportunity there.
Well, we do provide the fire rescue service to the Reddingtons, so there's
That would be a good.
some
yeah.
opportunity for that. Certainly a lot of public information regarding public safety, and I mean, we have separate contracts for law enforcement, but we use the same agency, and there is a mutual assistance for on certain occasions. I think St. Pete Beach may have a public info
They do.
position as
It's-
well. And
It's filled, yeah.
and Clearwater does, but Clearwater being significantly larger, they have a whole department for public communications.
I like the idea of subscribing, well, to the text, when you have important information to share. I'm on the website right now. There's minutes to, the minutes to the meetings don't happen overnight, but they happen pretty quickly. And I don't know if possibly there's a way for you elect to have those delivered to you via email, so you're reading the minutes, right, as is that one of the options that we have now? I know that,
I think so.
We
yeah.
post them within a couple of days, and they're where your agenda center is, where your agenda
Right.
and packet, and there's some draft minutes.
but most people don't come here. I think I'm on the system where if you're gonna send out
The email
An
list.
email.
Yeah, constant contact.
constant contact,
And which
but
we
maybe we just deliver the minutes.
could
Ours,
certainly add that.
yeah, ours
maybe
takes a couple of days because they're more detailed. You know, we like to catch, especially with the storms and all that, and people can get updates out of them, but it's a good idea for the
Well,
citizens to
Commissioner
get 'em.
Hudson, he kind of condensed everything and made it, he gave you the cliff notes. I get that. But, I'm just trying to think of ways we can improve the misinformation. And if you're subscribed to the constant contact, maybe you just get you get the minutes.
We
May-
could
may-
do that. We
Maybe
can
that
learn
could
to
be
do 'em
one
all.
of those checks that you could subscribe to, just like.
Or
yeah,
you elect what you want to get.
Right.
Yeah, we'll start using that as a clerk's office and start sending those out, and we post them right up on the agenda center.
Or maybe
We'll
we
also
we can
it
send
out.
out an email saying this is coming. Would you, you can select what you want
Be
what
happy
you want
to.
to see.
Be happy to do that.
Okay. I mean, I think that would take care of a lot of it.
I think it's a great idea. If we can partner with another community on the barrier islands, also anything to alleviate the false information that's floating around out there would definitely help the community. So definitely, it's a great idea.
I worry about text messaging. How do we get everybody's phone numbers? And are they like?
They can sign up, just like with Pinellas County. With Pinellas County, you can sign up for text messaging.
Okay.
And you get text messaging for,
Would reach out to our citizens and ask them to join.
you looked into that
Yeah,
software.
yeah, I mean, we're looking, I think we have well, we can certainly utilize a company if we don't. The existing contract may allow us to do that. We were reviewing that. But yeah, I mean, it would be, as the mayor stated, just folks to sign up for it. It'd be pretty simple, just enter your phone number and you would receive anytime we issue a text alert.
Yeah, I would agree with the mayor that text messaging is probably one of the best form of information. But getting all those folks on board where you can relay the information to is a challenge that you would have to work with.
And we do encourage folks to sign up for the email that's on our website. Again, through the service is called through Constant Contact. And I believe we had over 5,000 emails. Jay, I think, uses it more than anybody else.
Wonderful.
So we've actually been collecting emails through the parking passes for the last 10 years. So anybody that has signed up for a parking pass and provided their email as a resident has been added to this list, as well as anybody that's done business at the rec center, whether it's a class or anything. So we've got a substantial list. It's might be at like 6,200.
Whoa, that's good.
Yeah.
But isn't there sometimes, and maybe I misunderstood, a delay in the message going out on when you do those mass emails due to the size? I can't remember who told me that.
No,
I mean,
Somebody told me that works for the city.
I think it's like a 15, like you send it and it gives you like a 15-minute, like a window of in case you catch a mistake. I mean, there's plenty of opportunities, but there's like a 15-minute delay. And then after that, it runs through the list, down the list. So it's not that bad. It's within the hour.
yeah, we certainly use it for a lot of the city events, project updates, just basic reminders for sanitation. But I think mostly for events, classes, activities, meetings. And so, again, we have thousands that are registered for that, but we will look to add the texting.
So could you bring us an update on that? Because we've talked about that specific topic, the text
For the
messaging,
texting.
a few times now. And could you bring us back at our next
Yes.
meeting and tell us what that would cost us and how we would go about implementing it?
Yes.
Any further questions? Next on the agenda is the city manager.
I guess we don't have our presenter for the SBA loans will. John's past, update on John's past dredging. We did hear back from Florida Department of Environmental Protection. They did a site visit in July, requested additional information. Our contractor Aptim replied with the additional information requested. And we did hear back from FDEP last week or the week before. Aptim is reviewing that. They'll have 30 days to provide the additional information, which pertains to a lot of the having to do with the sample. Once they actually, where will the sand be placed? What'll be the method of removing it? Mainly a lot of technical details. FDEP also mentioned that some of their partner agencies are also still reviewing, and if they had any comments, they would share those comments with us. I included in the packet the timeline of the dredging, the project, and again, the most recent updates. We do follow up with, or I'm following up with Aptim every week to see what the status is with FDEP and also the U.S. Army Corps. All we've heard back, or all that Aptim has heard back, is the Corps is still reviewing the reply that Aptim provided in January. So we're waiting to hear back what, if any additional information is required. I did submit, as I mentioned before, we can have the extension through December 2025, so through the rest of this year. I will go ahead and just send that request over the next week, and then we'll have the ability through December. As of now, until we hear back from both agencies, then we are likely, I know I stated we should hear back within the next 30 to 60 days and looking to complete it by June, but we will have to the end of this year to complete the dredging.
Do we have any public comment? Commissioners, any comments or questions?
Thanks for keeping us regularly updated, and I like that timeline a lot. It's something I can share when people ask, where are we?
Thank you, Robin.
Commissioners?
Army Corps is not involved, right?
Yes, yeah, we have to obtain a permit from them
Do we?
because it
Okay.
involves the
They-
adjacent to the federal navigable waterway.
They're the ones that take the longest.
Well, and FDEP is, we have obtained a permit from the Florida Department of Transportation. I'm sorry, I omitted that, and that is valid through the end of December of this year.
Thank you.
So I do have a couple comments. I had so Representative Linda Cheney obtained this grant for us. And she's struggling with our city and lack of communication, lack of relationship. And at legislation a few weeks ago, there were 3 appropriations that had been requested through us and our lobbyists to be placed for her to go for. And I received a phone call from her, and she's very unhappy that when she, and I understand it, when she calls the city, she doesn't get responses. Her frustration is when you look at the timeline that she has the connections at the state level to help us, and we're not calling on her. When I spoke with her, I believe it was now 2 weeks ago, she had requested something through the lobbyist, didn't receive it, received something from the city manager's office. It wasn't what she asked for. When she did get it, she called me and we discussed it. I didn't even know what the appropriations were that we were requesting, which I think is something that we need to get better at communicating to the commission, because when you receive a phone call from your state representative and they're talking to you about something and you have no idea what it is, and maybe we were told and I missed it, but at any rate, the conversation that I had with her was that she had lost trust in our city and she was not going to put forth over $3 million in requests for appropriations because she didn't feel like she could get updates in a timely manner from us. And the reason I bring it up is because the only place that the five of us can have a discussion or that I can share a conversation that I have with another elected official is here. And Linda Cheney, Representative Linda Cheney, has been a huge advocate for our city. She has gotten us appropriations. She has gone for appropriations and been knocked down and kept going back for for different appropriations until she got them. And it is vital that we have a relationship with her office. It is just as important that we have a relationship with Nick DeSigley's office, Senator. So before we came here today, I had a meeting with Robin last week and we discussed this, so he knows. I don't know that he knew I was going to say this, but he knows that I had the discussion, that I had spoken with Representative Cheney, and she still is looking for a phone call from the city manager's office. Somehow, somebody in this city has got to figure out and understand that the relationship with Representative Cheney's office benefits this city. We got one appropriation that she put forward. We may not get it, but it's only $100,000. And the only reason she put it forward is because I assured her that I would make sure I provided her with updates on the dredging project and that I would provide her with updates on that $100,000 appropriation provided we get it. The two appropriations that did not get requested, and they had been requested before, or one of them had at least, my understanding, and we didn't get it last time. But if you know her, she's tenacious. She goes and she's a middle of the road politician. She fights for every community, and I want her fighting for us. $2 million of the appropriation that she was going to ask for was for a public works building, of which we all just voted to spend the money to get the drawings. And I tried to talk her into putting it forward, even if the governor wouldn't give it. But who knows what the governor's going to give this year, because this is a year of wild cards. We could have gotten everything we asked for. $1 million was for infrastructure. The $100,000 that she put forward is for valves. I mean, I want to impress how important it is to build the relationship with her office, with Senator DeSigley's office, with whomever is elected in this state to represent us. We should have a seat at the table and we should be on speed dial, both ways. And I don't know what the breakdown in communication is, but I know that it's not there from the city hall to her, and we've got to figure that out. My other comment would be this timeline. I don't see how we can meet a June, July completion, because if they requested more information in January, in February, FDEP confirmed that they received Aptam's replies. They've got 30 to 60 days to review that information. So if they don't review and finish until March, there is a 45 days to go out to bid. Once you have the bid put together, does Aptam have the bid ready to go? It is because the last update I saw from Aptam, they did not have it ready to go. So if the drawings or whatever is required to put something out to bid isn't ready the day we get the permits, then we're going to wait longer, and then the timeline's going to push. And last year, this time, we were being told we were going to have permits by June of last year. So my only concern is factual information, and use the people who we have that are there that will help us. I guarantee you she could help us with FDEP. I mean, it's Florida. So I'm frustrated by that, and I'm not trying to be down on anything, but when I sit here, I want the information that I get to be the facts, and I don't want them changing. And I don't think that, I feel like when I look at it, so I don't understand, but I look at it and I go, so does Aptum know what they're doing? Do they not, I mean, this is what they do, so, and maybe they do, maybe this is commonplace for the federal agencies to keep coming back for more information, but I looked at the request for some of the information and thought, well, why didn't they provide that to begin with? So I thought that was important to
Mayor, to
say.
your point, a consultant that submits to DEP or Army Corps, if they don't respond to the comments properly, correctly, they'll come back with more comments. So DEP or any government agency, they're not going to add more comments just because they forgot what they were supposed to do. They will respond to the original comments. And if we don't properly address those, then there'll be more comments. In other words, they'll come back with the disapproval, and this will continue until a consultant gets it right. Now, I'm not sure who our consulting firm is. I'm sure they're good. They're probably doing a good job. But if they're not responding properly to those comments, you get more and more
Questions.
questions.
I mean, I know that because I know that like here in our planning and permitting department, we used to have a system, and the system was you would put in for a permit and it would go to the planning department and it went to the permit department. So planning would do their review, and permit our city official, our Frank DeSantis at the
Building
time,
official.
building official, thank you, I was looking for the word. He would do his comments. So whoever submitted for the permits, they would get comments from two different departments because they weren't talking to each other. Now we're talking to each other. That was a change that I was told happened. So so that a resident's not getting back multiple things and then you're 6 or 7 times bringing something in. So that makes sense to me that if you're not answering it completely, you're not going to get
Yes.
right.
And are we going to be okay with the $1.55 million if we obtain the permit and start construction, let's say by December? Would that fund still be available?
No, if we're not done by December, we lose the money.
Constructed?
We,
Or,
the job has to be done.
Has to be completed
Has
by
to be
December.
completed by December or we lose it.
all right.
My concern is, here we are 3 years later and we're still, and the can keeps getting kicked down the road. And the stress of what I'm saying is, use the people who are sitting in the position. I mean, she got us the money, right?
Yes.
Whatever she wants in an update, she shouldn't have to ask twice. That is my personal opinion, sitting here, that's full within her right. She wants an update. This is the update she wants. Okay, let's give it to her, because we want her to go to bat for us again, over and over and over and over.
I know, when John Hendricks was here, he had a great relationship, and that was a one-on-one relationship. I don't believe Linda Cheney actually worked with the city manager's office. I don't believe you were here at the time. Well, you may have been at the end, but
At the end, yeah, at the end.
at the end, I mean, I don't want to put any more time on you, but,
I do have a relationship with her.
I know, I'm just saying, how do we as a city best nurture that relationship? I know we had, the relationship between the city manager and Linda was rough a while back because she didn't feel that, the city manager was being responsive. So is that bridge burned? I thought that was all taken care of, that was all mended, it was all fixed. But if you're saying it's not, how much of that can we put on your shoulders to keep her updated? Because I think that may be the easiest, best, because way to mend that. What does she need? I know you're
Well,
you're
that's what,
tenacious as well, so you can get her answers.
so that is, I committed to her that I would provide, what I want is, I want Robin to work on his relationship with her.
I
I want
understand.
Robin to pick the phone up and call her. I want Robin to do that because we need him to have a relationship. If he's going to be here long-term, we're not. I want Robin to foster that. I want to have a I will have a relationship with her. I will do
But
everything I can.
It may take both,
Correct.
because
Well-
right now, if she's not even going to bat for us and submitting applications
Right.
on our behalf, it's seriously damaged.
So I had a meeting I met with our lobbyist and I met with RJ, our previous lobbyist.
Right.
And it'd be interesting to understand how Robin feels about our current lobbyist and what, I mean, RJ was our lobbyist for a really long time and he went out on his own. And when I met with him to try to understand the dynamics, right? Like, what should the expectation be and those sorts of things. And I had a great conversation with him. He has a great relationship with her. And he had worked for the city for a really long time. So he gave me some pointers on things, right? And I appreciate and understand the need for the relationship from this dais as well as from Robin to her. And I mean, I'm clearly willing to put the time in and I appreciate the opportunity, but we have to be a team.
When we wrote the letter to Linda and, I don't know if we sent it to Senator DeSigley or not regarding, I can't remember, it wasn't the impact fees. It was, I had penned the letter.
I remember that.
You had sent
yeah.
it. Anyway, I received an email back months ago from Linda's staff saying that she would not be looking into that. And I left it at that. I wasn't going to start a debate back and forth. But I don't know if that had to do with our relationship with the city or if she just had other priorities, and that wasn't one of the high priorities because of the hurricane, Helene. She may have had, you can only put so much on your agenda. But that's troubling. But we need to mend that. But I think it's gonna take both of you.
Was
Right.
it a property tax issue that you were?
Yeah.
talking
Yeah, it was a
the
property
property
tax
tax.
issue. That's what it was. I couldn't remember, but we did it as a group.
Right.
Thank you. But her staff said that she's not gonna go down that path.
She's upset with us right now.
Well, we need to
There's
figure
no-
out how to
there's-
amend it.
yes.
Sorry.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I'll definitely reach out to her, and the request that she made provided her a considerable amount of a lot of the data that's on here, and even more, including copies of emails and reports. Those were provided to her staff upon the request. I will reach out and speak with her directly. I did a couple of times before the storms. I know she's wanting this to have been completed probably more than a year ago. And we will get this done, but that's what we will do. And our lobbyist has led the majority of all of the work. I mean, that's one reason why we pay them. But I mean, RJ did a great job. I think our Jim Taylor now does a great job as well. And so they're doing the processing in Tallahassee, and we'll make sure that we provide everything that they need.
I'm confused about that whole relationship. Before we had the meeting where he came and spoke, really nice guy. The meeting before that, we kind of had a summary of what monies what assistance they were able to get on our behalf, and it was very limited. But then when he actually spoke, it was a lot of the same items that Representative Cheney was taking credit for. So I'm not sure, is it just a joint effort and you live with it? They both get acknowledged for the same funding that comes through, regardless who put the efforts through. or is it one or the other? And
Well,
I'm-
I think our lobbyist completes all the requirements that are needed by both chambers in order for the representative and the senator to present, and it goes before committees, the floor, and then to be included as to file the bill. The representative, the senator do that. They receive the details behind the actual projects, what we're looking to be funded from city staff to the lobbyist, to Shoemaker, and then that is transferred to the representative and the senator's staff to be submitted as part of the bill for the funding.
Okay, because, I mean, we're getting off topic, but we're really not. And I think it's a very important discussion. You know, it'll come up at some point where do we want to continue the relationship with our lobbyists and pay the fees to the lobbyists? And then it's like, you know, what have you done for me lately? It's, you know, if we are on the bad side of our representatives, that they're not going to submit anything on our behalf, that's troubling.
I do want to add, as I shared when the mayor and I met, as she said earlier, that some of these I mean, we've received funding for a road project that still is in the design, and that we received that funding in 2022 as well. The dredging, we received funding for the beach groins, which are approaching 75% thereabouts completion. And then last year we received funding for a seawall project, which again, and compared to the other three that I mentioned, this is significantly a smaller project, both dollars and actual work done, but that should be completed within the next few months. We're on a bit of a pause now, but again, the larger ones do take a little bit longer time, but I've discussed with the mayor, and we will do everything that we need to do to make it work right.
Yeah, we just need to mend that relationship, and it's gonna
Definitely.
take everybody's help.
So, excuse me. Representative Cheney is a great ally for our community, great ally. And this goes directly back to the key to the city and how we can show our appreciation. And we were talking about specifics earlier. Well, she really is a friend to our community, and giving her the key to the city, as we discussed earlier, could show our appreciation and how much we care about her.
Okay.
Comments? Next on the agenda is the honor court.
Again, to give an update on the project, we did meet with our engineer of record, and we looked at the designs. We're just finalizing really the final component to bring back to you and what the costs would be, and we should have that back for the March workshop for you, and a final and any other input that you would like, and then provide what the estimates would be. The original estimate was a little bit higher than we had anticipated. So we're looking at what can be done to make it, and you have in the packet a proposed design of the court, but we're looking for some adjustments again to stay within. We had originally a budget of $250,000 for this. It is likely going to be higher than that amount.
Do we have any public comment? Commissioners?
Are you asking from us specific design input, or
We will bring that back to you.
so what
I
do
mean,
you
but
ask?
this is kind of the sample of what we have.
Okay,
One of and again, because the estimated cost came in probably about 150,000 higher than what we had budgeted, but some of those are adjustments that we can make. For example, we don't need electrical. Some of the landscaping, I believe, and some of the electrical doesn't need to be a part of it. But, you know, for example, we had in mind sitting walls, and the pricing we received was pretty high. We haven't issued a bid, but these are just estimates provided by the engineer and the architects. And so we're looking for other options to have possibly benches that are less expensive and those types of, but we will bring that back for your review at the March workshop.
Much of this funding was a grant, wasn't it?
We received two contributions of totaling $26,000.
Okay.
Comments?
I feel like if we can keep it as close to our budget as possible, I mean, less expensive benches, although I do like the idea that people have a place to not just will stand, they can sit and enjoy it.
Mhm.
I mean, I think the design looks nice. I don't have any issues with that. So I'd be in favor of moving forward with some more specific bids, et cetera, based on this presentation.
Where do we stand with permitting with DOT and SwiftMud?
We haven't, well, I don't think we need a permit from either, right, Megan?
Yes, we do.
It's on city property. I don't believe it's a
We do
DOT
not
right
need an
away.
FDOT permit. We will submit for a Swift Mud exemption, but we will not need an FDOT permit.
Are you putting a sidewalk in the DOT right away?
No, sir.
You're going to keep the sidewalk as it exists?
Yes.
So we have I think it's an 8-foot to 10-foot sidewalk that's currently on 150th Avenue.
That's
Do you not-
FDOT's. And
Uh,
then once it goes past that, like where our sign is, where
Mm.
the Patriot Park sign is, past that, that sidewalk will stay much the same as what it is.
So you would not want to match the width of that sidewalk that we currently have on 150th?
It's around the same size. I would have to measure it directly. But it would stay within the same footprint with plus or minus a foot or two of what it is. That sidewalk over there is pretty large.
I thought it was only 5 foot.
Without measuring it exactly, I am not sure, but it is quite large.
All right, and then also as far as elevation wise, since we have experienced a hurricane recently, could we lift this up a little bit and be sure that, a normal no-name storms can survive?
We can't elevate the seawall.
Not the seawall.
It
The
floods
court.
over the seawall on a normal tide over there often, which is what was detrimental in the design of this.
So you're raising the court a little bit? You have to.
That was not part of the plan.
So in any sort of a storm, this will be underwater.
The current park is often underwater over there.
Right, so, but we're building something new. And we should consider raising this to an acceptable elevation where you wouldn't have to deal with any sort of a damage. I know you're not designing it, but we can recommend that to our designer to raise the court as much as possible.
Okay.
Thank you.
Getting back to what you were saying, were you talking about getting rid of the electrical part?
Looking at what we can put in there and
Oh.
to keep the lighting, because the flags will be lit at night.
Right.
All right, just following up on what earlier, Megan, if you don't mind me asking, would this design, how would it be impacted if it was covered with water? Would it be destroyed?
No, it would be just the same as all of the concrete is over there currently, and there's no issues.
Even 4 feet like we had?
No issues with any sinking of any concrete over there due to any of the hurricanes. The only issue we had, which was corrected, were the leaks in the seawall, which had caused the sidewalk to sink. But with the seawall corrections, that's all been fixed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Could we assume that it'll need to be power washed from time to time? And will be able to be constructed so that it withstand power washing?
We pressure wash over there at least one time a year, and yes, it will be able to withstand that.
Next on the agenda is city purchasing.
So again, from this agenda item, again, brought by the commission, not exactly sure, though, then there was some comments regarding the city manager's spending authority. So this lists our current purchasing ordinance and processes. As I mentioned at the last meeting, we do have the 3 levels of spending up to 5,000, which are just regular spending. A lot of that is done via our purchasing card, but anyone designated, department heads, managers, et cetera, their designees, can purchase anything up to $5,000. Any item between 5,000, should be in 1 cent, to 30,000 are purchased by obtaining at least 3 well, it says requesting quotations. Our guidance has been really 3 quotes to make those purchases. Any item or service costing over 30,000, we issue a competitive bid. There are a few exceptions, such as sole sourcing, using an existing other government contract in the form of piggybacking or a cooperative purchase agreement. So those are the 3 categories. Our purchasing authority goes up to 30,000, then after that, as I stated, requires a formal bid.
Do we have any public comment?
Chuck Dillon once again. Excuse me. Is there any way that we can look at seeing about getting a bid proposal for Tom and Kitty Stewart Park to get that repaired and back open to the public?
That's in the agenda item
It
later.
is. Commissioners' comments?
I've looked over this closely and nothing sticks out to me, but I wonder if there's a way we can, and I don't know, I wish I could give you specifics, but I can't figure out how to say it, that if a project is going to be very visible to the public, regardless of whether it's above 30,000 or below 30,000, that it become a discussion on our workshop at the very least, so that we don't run afoul. I mean, maybe we did it correctly in our finance policies, but it didn't, it had bad PR. So I don't know how that would be worded, but I feel like if it's very public, very publicly viewed, we should have a talk about it before we move forward with it.
Are you making reference to like the
Yes.
pilings
Yes,
or?
Jetty.
Trying to think of how you would do that.
I mean, I don't know the exact way to word it, but I understand when the increase went up to the city manager for $30,000. What I don't think was intended was that that would be used for anything that would be a major change or to the community. I don't think that was the intent of increasing the dollar amount. So I don't know how I totally understand what Vice Mayor Taglerini is saying, and I agree. Because if we'd have had public communication, I think that my opinion is that if we had had real public conversation about the pilings going in, we'd have probably had support.
Well, you've got,
I mean,
you've got that, but also you have notification of the discussion,
right.
which is another reason to send out or have an opportunity to send out the minutes. But how do you word that? What qualifies? Is that up to the city manager's discretion? Do you restrict that to the beach area? Do you know, is it, different zones?
When you make a major visual change to the community, there should be a discussion before it happens.
But how do you rate that as an ordinance or? I'm open.
Yeah,
I like the
that's
idea
why
because,
I'm looking
yeah,
at them because I
I
understand where you're both
and I'm
going.
sure-
I don't know the words.
I'm sure Robin would support
Yeah.
that because to keep
I
him out of
mean, yeah.
hot water as well. You
Well,
know,
let me
don't make
say
it be
this.
his
The-
independent decision.
The pilings, that when that whole debacle happened, I really do wish that it had gotten brought to the commission and we had had some robust discussion here after the fact, because I am certain that Megan did mention it in a meeting.
Mm.
There wasn't great conversation, but there was a mention, and because I remember it, and there was somebody else here that remembered it, but I couldn't find it.
I don't recall
I could not find it.
until it was a hubbub.
Yeah. I couldn't, we didn't have real discussion, but it was mentioned when she came up one night, and I don't know how to do that, but I agree. That would be, commissioners?
Well, it's a tough item to discuss, in my opinion, because you want to give as much flexibility to our city manager and the team as possible. And then how would you determine what's really important and needs to be brought before public? I think that would have to be a judgment call by our city manager. So, if something has a great magnitude that needs to be heard by this commission and the public, then we would hope and expect city manager to do that.
Well, it clearly states, the city manager will secure the Board of Commissioners' approval, correct? With anything over $30,000. Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It has also, as the mayor had said earlier, and we'll go back to the pilings again, anything such as that should go before the board and get the approval of the board. And I also agree with that also. But getting back to anything over 30,000 goes in front of the board to get the approval. So there it is.
But that's all existing. So
Right.
no, what we're recommending now is no change other than to be aware.
Maybe this discussion is what was needed. So that we're all publicly viewed areas, major impacts. Let's have a conversation.
Next on the agenda is the CAP Government Agreement for Building Department Services.
So we did, I think as the commission is aware, we did, our building official resigned from the city. His last day was February the 14th, so we sought, we continue to advertise for a building official. We have had a couple of interviews. We have at least one, I believe at least one more scheduled, probably early next week. In the interim, we have hired a company, CAP Government. We utilize an existing agreement with the city of Dania Beach, but we are using this existing government contract in this firm to currently provide a building official and inspections as they are needed. They do provide a full array of building permitting services, should we need to use them as well, such as plan review or anything else related to our hurricane recovery and getting structures repaired or new structures built, et cetera. So this is where, after looking at 3 separate companies, we decided we were looking to go with this company. They have started performing the work. Again, we are using an existing, other existing government contract.
Do we have any public comment? Commissioners, comments?
Just, I'm sure this is stating the obvious. This is to replace Frank DeSantis.
Yes, the
Yes.
building, yeah, mainly
And-
performing building official work.
A lot of stuff.
Continue to issue permits, perform inspections, et
Big
cetera.
time. Right, right. I assume if we've had 3 firms solicit and this is the one the city is recommending? that we should-
Yes.
You just want to know if we want to move forward and continue?
Yes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
seems good. Yes.
I was just looking where Daniel Beach is, that's down in Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah, in Broward County.
Yeah, not that that matters, I'm just, so this is a short-term, long-term? I didn't understand. This is a long-term?
Well,
thing?
until we, I mean, we
Until we
can,
have
as
that
long as we
position
need
filled.
them,
Until we have that position filled?
until we get a building official and back to full staff.
Right, so currently, by utilizing that, it's strict, we just have the one position that we're looking to use them for?
Well, we've been using building official and for inspections as well.
And her current run rate is $109 an hour? I believe?
Yes.
It's not inexpensive, and we have, I mean, we don't have much of a choice. We need to get this city back in shape. So, but we're currently trying to hire
Yes, hire a replacement,
okay.
a full-time building official.
It's as good as interim as we can get, I guess.
Yes.
I feel like it gives us a breathing room so that we don't have to rush into hiring someone. We can find the right person because the job is being done as we look.
Eddie?
Have we thought about promoting from within?
We currently do not have anyone with the
Qualified.
credentials to be able to serve as a building official. Okay. We hope to in the future, but just not yet.
Okay.
Could we not engage Pinellas County to review building plans and permits for us in the meantime instead?
We can certainly ask.
It's happened before.
But we don't need someone to review building plans.
No,
We
it's
have a
actually
planning
somebody to
department.
issue the
We need
permits.
to permit, somebody to go issue permits and
Yeah,
do
they do issue
inspections.
permits with Pinellas County.
They do. I mean, we can ask if they're building official. I don't know if one building official can issue in 2 jurisdictions. That I'm not aware, but we can certainly inquire.
Well, $109 an hour may not, be a dent in our budget, as long as it's temporary. So, but I was just bringing up that idea.
Are you suggesting that the county wouldn't charge us?
I'm sure they would, but it might be much less. However, I'm not saying, I'm just giving options.
Is there any per diem or anything? It's just $109?
It's just the flat rates that are in the contract.
That includes. Yeah, I love that inquiry idea. That's wonderful. Whatever, we just can't, I mean, we have a strong need right now. We have to have somebody in that place.
I mean, I think she's doing a great job. I have heard nothing but positive feedback from not only our staff and a total shift in attitude from inside the walls of City Hall to the community out, the people out in our community with her. I do have a question, Robin, online. I thought we were advertising for a building official and a deputy.
Yes.
But that's not online.
Because we did interview a person for the deputy building.
So the only thing listed for the building department is a building official. Well, I mean, code compliance, but not a deputy. So I was wondering if you've,
We will add that.
okay, just curious. Nothing more.
I would like to also add that I met with her as well last Friday, and she was extremely professional, and she was very impressed.
I mean, let me just tell you, I was riding, I think I was with Megan, I think. I was with somebody. And it was raining, and she, the building official, was out working in the rain at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And she had stopped her vehicle, got out of her vehicle, and was addressing a code violation. I mean, that might not mean much to y'all, but it sure meant a lot to me. And she seems to be doing a great job. We're pretty lucky, I think, that we found somebody as good to fill in. Next on the agenda is community development, updates to the code for C1 and C2 zoning district.
All right, last year, we amended our land development regulations to include the Johns Pass Village Activity Center. It's all the zoning sections in the code. So we found three different sections in the code that reference that old C1 and C2 zoning district. So there will be 3 different ordinances just to update those sections. The first section is, I'll just scroll through it. First section is pretty straightforward, is just this table updating the names. So you remember C2, which is was the boardwalk area, that was removed and everything was under C1 zoning district. The second ordinance touches the accessory structure section in the code. So then it's brought down into the character districts, so the commercial core and traditional village district, the boardwalk district, and then the Johns Pass Resort transitional and low intensity mixed use districts. So that's like the R3 districts. And so we tried to keep what was similar to what they had for accessory structures in like the zoning district prior to being rezoned to the C1 zoning district. And then removing that C2, since that C2 zoning district does not exist anymore. And then this is just a little cleanup to make it a little easier to read. And then I can pass it to Andrew for the alcohol section in the code. Let me get to it.
So one of the sections we had the update after adopting Johns Pass Village Activity Center is the alcohol section. For the most part, the main changes are adding the reference to the new zoning district and the character districts. The restrictions are staying the same as what they were with the previous zoning. On the beach side, the alcohol use is just restricted to restaurants, and that has to meet that like 60% threshold for of their sales have to be for non-alcoholic items. One change we also did to kind of protect the community, especially on the beach side, was so with PDs, previously we didn't really reference PDs very well in the alcohol section, which wasn't good because if you had a PD next to a residential area, you didn't really have any restrictions to limit them to just being a restaurant where they could potentially apply for a more intense alcohol license than what you would want near like certain residential areas. So one thing we did was with the PD, you're still locked to what the previous alcohol restrictions were for the zoning district. So let's say you had an R3 zone property on the beach side and you rezoned it to a PD to build a new hotel, it would still be locked to that. The only alcohol use you can do is be the restaurant, and you'd have to meet that 60% attributable to sale of food threshold. So they wouldn't be able to get around that.
We were trying to keep that consistent whenever you see the PD amendment, the new PD section in the code. even with like accessory structures and fences, they have to meet what the accessory structure was prior to zoning it to PD. So it's just kind of similar in that respect.
Yep. And there's some other language cleaning up, related to distance requirements, related to, bars and package stores, and just some other, just clarification, because there were some sections where it was kind of like requiring an additional survey, but then it didn't really say what uses it was for, so I rearranged it, so, it's just for the beer and like for the package stores and clubs and bars, which we don't really have any clubs around here, so it's not much of an issue, but and then there was other little changes, like instead of his, I changed it to their, to make it gender neutral, because it kept saying his over and over again through here, so I cleaned that up. And, and I guess with the expansion of alcohol beverage zoning, it was kind of vague about that 10%. Is it a square footage? Which, is that like overall like gross square footage? Is that just a square footage for the seating? So I cleaned it up, so it now says 10% over the original approved square footage or approved seating count. So the seating count that would have been on the previous alcohol permit, if it's more than 10% of that, then it would trigger having to go back to you guys for approval. And then the other thing, they need to provide a revised site plan showing the expansion that it doesn't exceed that 10% threshold. Because if it does, then it has to go back through as a public hearing. So I think that covers most of the changes.
Yep, that's it.
Yep. So, and Ford Pinellas did review all these ordinances, and when it comes to the first reading, their letter will be attached to it.
Do we have any public comment? Commissioners?
Thank you, Mayor. Just for my clarity, the character districts are like commercial core, traditional village, boardwalk district. Is that what the character?
Yes, those are the character
And so they
districts.
each carry their own set of setbacks, limitations, et cetera. So even
Yes.
though we're calling it all C1, those districts are still protected.
Yep.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay,
And
then
all the previous alcohol restrictions carried over, so it matches up to what it's always been.
Got it. Thank you. Makes sense.
We've been going around with this for years. So it doesn't seem like anything's really changed. It's all good. Thank you.
Commissioners?
No comment.
So my only question is, on the PD zoning districts, properties that are rezoned to the PD zoning district have the same restrictions for alcoholic beverages as the zoning district prior to rezoning to PD zoning district. Is that going to limit the commission in approving a plan development and negotiating with a developer for concessions if they wanted something different? So if they were, I guess, I don't even know what I'm thinking. I'm just in my head because of something earlier today that I had missed at a previous meeting when we were talking about it. When we do a plan development, the whole idea of a plan development for us is the opportunity to negotiate with a developer and to get something better, bigger, more for the city. So and maybe I'm off base on this and you can tell me, but I'm imagining if they came in for a plan development and they wanted to have something that they wouldn't have been able to have, a bar.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't have been able to have a bar prior, but in the plan development, they're asking for approval to have a bar, and we're gonna dictate the design of the building, or we're gonna dictate something. That's going to keep that type of negotiation from happening.
One thing that we could, well, and Tom may correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe we could have another sentence in there, like unless specifically approved in the rezoning. So you don't want to put it in the DA, so the DA is void after they receive their CO. What
Ah.
we've seen is PD districts, they were approved in the past, things are built, and then we're kind of in this gray area of, well, what can we approve, like with accessory structures and fences, alcohol, the code isn't specific to it.
Right.
So we were just trying to cover that, but maybe a sentence saying unless if it's specified in the rezoning of PD, or if there's a better way, Tom, that you can think of.
I would just say unless otherwise authorized by the Board of Commissioners.
I like that. So the reason is I like the idea of us having the opportunity to negotiate to the benefit of the city instead of being restricted. And I mean, the whole idea of a plan development is so, to me, in my mind, so that the city gets something out of it,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
And at the same time, we've set a path where we are going to have more control over dictating the exterior look of a building so that we can keep, for instance, in John's Pass, we want to keep that vibe, that look. We want to do the step backs. So the buildings might be a little taller if the whatever, but we get that step back look where you don't see it. We can require clapboard siding or whatever, is the whatever. I do understand though that how things go away after a period of time, which is kind of stinky. I mean, that's like shady. If there was a way to make it where they couldn't do that, right? I don't know, is there a way that you can continue to have more control over a PD long-term?
So in those situations where we're trying to control specific things after the DA has expired, we add declarations of covenants or restrictions that are recorded and run with the land. So we have done that in the past. So, for example, parking requirements or, something in particular that we want to make sure that it always exists. That's how we do it. So we attach it as an exhibit to the DA saying that this will be recorded simultaneously with the DA. So the DA may go away, but the restrictions continue on. So,
think
I would
we've done
like
that
if-
with noise before
Yeah.
in the past.
So I think if we could be mindful, that would be wonderful, moving forward to protect the city, right? When we do approve it. So I would like a sentence that would give us the will to make an adjustment if we wanted to.
We'll definitely put that in.
Yeah, we can
I-
add that. That's a good idea.
Seem to recall Mr. Trask warning us that we can't mandate things during a PD, like, okay, well, we're not going to approve your PD unless you put in that traffic light, or unless you,
called an exaction, a prohibited exaction. So, but this would be something that would be negotiated. We'll give you the alcohol beverage license that you want in return for you doing this over here, kind of thing. So you can negotiate that, you're giving and getting. So they have to get something in return.
That's the great benefit of a PD.
You just can't tell them to do something unless it's currently required by the code.
okay.
Gives flexibility
Yeah.
to us and to the development team.
Yeah.
But basically, you're doing that. If you're not, I'm not going to approve this PD unless you do, I mean, that's a negotiation. I'm not going to, as a board, we're not going to approve your PD unless we get you updating all the sewer within a 3-block area, whatever, I
But
don't-
I think that doesn't, I mean, that usually happens before the, I think
We're-
it's negotiated.
We're talking about alcohol beverage in here, right? We're not
Right,
talking
right
about-
now,
We're
we're just
also
talking about,
talking- but
but
yeah,
we're
but we're
talking
talking
about,
about
in general,
general.
we're talking about, because, I mean, in general, what they're trying to address PDs in everything we're gonna do, right? So that there's some verbiage in there that ties everything together, and I totally get that. But I also get that a PD is done The reason somebody does a PD is because they want something that current code wouldn't allow them to have.
Right, like
The-
I'm
In-
sorry.
Yeah, so the benefit for the city is to keep it so that we can negotiate something,
Right. Give and take.
it's a total give and take. It's not saying you got to do this or we won't do that. It's saying, okay, these,
But that was the whole point of the last 2 years, so that we wouldn't receive PDs. How many times do we hear that? We want to expand the height, we want to expand the, whatever it was, the occupancy, we wanted to expand all these things so that we wouldn't receive any more PDs. So if that were the case, if we were getting so much out of a PD, why did we go through everything we just went through over the last 2 years, 3 years, 4 years?
I don't think that, I just,
Get confused between a development agreement and a PD.
right,
Okay?
right.
There's the distinction. The development agreement is the contractual relationship where you can negotiate something. The planned development rezoning isn't necessarily, they can be tied, but they're not necessarily tied.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is post-hurricane update, recovery, rebuild, permitting, FEMA, and FDIM.
And Mayor and Commission, just a few updates. We met with, staff and I met with FEMA earlier today regarding our permitting regulatory processes. Overall, I think it was a very good meeting. We went over a lot of the details and how the city's processing certain items, any issues we've encountered, et cetera. I think overall, it was a positive meeting, and there was FEMA staff complimented the city, and certainly our staff continues to do a great job. And we included in the packet some of the statistics of the permit activity, getting folks starting the process to continuing the process rather to get back into their homes. As of this week, we're up over 1,600 permits that have been issued, over 800 for interior demos, 420, over 420 for interior remodel, over 1,200 substantial damage determination notifications that have been sent out. As we mentioned earlier, we have a new building official, so we continue to issue permits, perform inspections, and other programs that we continue to promote the Elevate Florida. I had mentioned at the last meeting that in the first 2 days, one of the updates from the county showed that over 12,000 applications had been received, and then later in the same update, it said 70% were from Pinellas County, but it showed just about 750 were Pinellas County. So the total was actually 1,200, not 12,000. 1,200 applications for Elevate Florida in the first couple of days. Also earlier today, so people can continue to apply for the program for Elevate Florida. Earlier today, we also heard at the Big C meeting held here, a little overview from the Pinellas County's contractor for the U.S. Housing and Urban Development Department Community Development Block Grants for disaster recovery. And the county has been awarded over $800 million for a variety of issues, long-term recovery for the most part, but more information will be coming out. The county has had, I think, 1 or 2 meetings at their county commission. They'll be having public meetings and more discussions to establish an action plan and how the money can be utilized realistically over the next couple of years for the continuing recovery. And the last program before I turn it over to Jenny, we also attended a meeting today with the Florida Division of Emergency Management and the contractor Tidal Basin that performed a significant number of the damage estimates. Also a productive meeting. Kind of the takeaway from the meeting is there more kind of cooperation, collaboration between really kind of legislative changes in the future that would help the overall process related to the Florida Building Code and what FEMA requires, but really and also how Tidal Basin provided some of the data and the software that was used. Again, as we've explained here, and Marcy has done a great job in utilizing the data, massaging the data, getting it ready to send out all the determination letters that have been submitted. So there can definitely be enhancements going into the future. Hopefully we don't have to do it into the future, but we likely will at some point. But certainly the coordination, collaboration, a representative from Linda Cheney's office was present, taking information to share with the representative about potential, future legislative reviews and changes that could be made to kind of streamline and just better coordination and usage of the time spent in reviewing data and what really would be required. If I come up with anything else, Jenny, anything to add? You covered.
Oh, I think that's about it. Another thing to add is that office hours are posted online, and that's all the way through March 31st. So we have a few Saturdays up there as well. But like Robin was saying, today was pretty packed with a lot of meetings with the state. But everything looks like it's going well.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, Mayor. And certainly along with the open hours, I mean, we have folks that just kind of come over to City Hall. We'll, do everything we can to answer the questions, provide them the information. But I think the biggest takeaway that I take from this is, yes, it was a very complicated process, and we appreciate everyone's patience and understanding. But we do have to continue. We do have to remind not just property owners, but contractors that this is a process, and it's, yes, a little bit different than the normal going and obtaining a building permit from your local government. However, it does require a lot more work and a little bit more research. And whatever we can do to help folks along, we will continue to do that. Again, the goal is to get folks back into their property and, return Madeira Beach, not just how it looked before, but likely even an enhanced version of the city. And again, get every resident back here and get lots of visitors continue to visit our city.
Do we have any public comment? Commissioners?
Just briefly, that update that we just saw answered like 5 of the questions from that email, which is why I forwarded it.
It's just amazing to me that city permit activity, we only have 2 new residential buildings.
This was from last week. I think we are up to 6 and I'm saying that from this, I thought that's what I heard this morning from our staff, but we'll find out and we can report that. But and it's been just a few, haven't been very many.
I remember Marcy saying it was just a few, but
Yeah, I checked our numbers. I think it was yesterday. It was 2. It was still 2.
Still 2.
really. I mean, you drive out on Crystal Island, you see starts, you see block work, I'll just say that. I guess they were all submitted prior to the storm.
Yes, and then we do have 78 full demos, so we will be seeing a lot more.
And the data, and I don't mean to interrupt you, Commissioner, the data that we're not presenting here, but we did have to show to FEMA earlier today because they requested it, was the compliance side. We've issued, I believe it was over 50 stop work orders, maybe closer to 70. I didn't bring the sheet with me. And we have another couple hundred that we are addressing of potentially non-compliance. So
I believe that
could be part of
yeah.
it.
We have
And
63.
63 stop work orders.
I overlooked the full demo there.
Sorry, I just thought of one more question. I see that we have 78 full demos, but are we keeping a tally of buildings that have been demolished? Do we have that number, or can we?
Well, that'll be in our software. We can extract that, and we will.
If we want it, I think that question's been asked and I couldn't answer
No,
that.
and I can tell you, just driving and walking around the city, I can think of right now Well, just single-family homes, I can think of about 10.
There's,
But I think there's
several
more.
in my neighborhood that I
Right.
just
I think
see
it's
by
about
walking
20
around.
I
Yeah.
mean, there's definitely been some.
It'd just be interesting to
Yeah, we'll
compare
provide that also.
demolition permits compared to actual demolitions.
So, so of the substantial damage determination letters issued, which is 1,147, how many of those are 50% damage or more? Is that, does that include both categories, I'll just say? That
Yes,
1147?
that
Yeah, it's both.
does. Let me see if I have that.
So there's
here.
1,700, isn't that single-family residents or duplexes or whatever in our city,
Yes, 1,700 residential structures.
residential structures? So there's
I
still
think there was
500.
about around 600 that were substantially damaged, a little over 400 that were not substantially damaged of the initial determinations, but then about 400 were reversed. So if that gives you any. that's what I
Oh,
have.
okay.
Yeah,
For-
I think we didn't mention these substantial damage determination notifications are preliminary
Right.
Right.
determination. So again, and in the letter, it states, if you disagree, here's the appeal process.
So roughly 40% or 35%, something like that, are actually required to rebuild or elevate, or, I guess,
That, yeah, I think that's a fairly safe inference at this point without looking
Going
at.
into the numbers, yeah.
I mean, I'm just spitballing, yeah, that 35% after appeal.
Probably. And then we're still waiting. We have more appeals, but we haven't gone through the whole process I think there's over 200 that are under review for appeal.
So at the end of the day, 1,700 homes, if a quarter of those are required that's a lot. To rebuild, that's a lot of homes.
Even just looking at the 78 demos, that's quite a lot of demos, full demos.
Yeah. Be kind to your neighbor.
Comments?
What about the people that have come in and bought these properties, pretty much 40 cents on the dollar, and they're ignoring the permits, and they're doing their own construction? What is the consequence for their actions for not being compliant?
So that's kind of the next stage of this whole process is we will have to ramp up code enforcement, look to see who pulled a demo permit, interior demo permit, who has interior remodel permits, and go through the entire system, flag all those properties. And we have a lot of pictures of homes in the exterior and interior if they were provided to us. And we'll be flagging those properties and putting them into code enforcement.
And the consequence, will they have to, say, for instance, they didn't remove the drywall, it's still mold, and they just painted over it. Now, will they have to literally tear that back out again? Or, because that's a health hazard, right?
Yeah, that would be a hazard, definitely. And then if we catch anybody, it would be a stop work order. And then if we don't see any permits or remediation, then that gets elevated to the special magistrate. So
Thank
that
you.
will be a large process. I'm sure you'll hear a lot about that, and we'll definitely keep the board informed of everything that's going on.
Thank you.
For those people that have requested appeal, how long will that take for the appeal period to be over?
For the appeal for the determination, it really depends. We are also taking walk-ins during the open office hours. So if somebody comes in, even with pictures, and we can pull up the initial determination from a tidal basin, That's who's been working with the county, who initially gives out that determination. We can kind of run the numbers and reverse it based on pictures. We can also reverse it based on appraisals, actual cash value, ACV appraisals. So there's a few different ways, as well as property owners can go to the Pinellas County Property Appraiser website, contact the appraisers and get their home reassessed to get that FEMA 50 or that 50% value up, so that then maybe they would become not substantially damaged.
So would the review be limited to just the city, or would FEMA also be involved?
It's a city. The city does the review. And then we also work with a workforce group. They're an outside consultant. So we send some of the ACV appraisals to them for review, as well as the cost estimates.
Thank you.
So one of the things that I'd like to bring up, Robin and I talked about it this week. When we voted to suspend permit fees for 1 year, we voted to do that for homeowners who currently owned the home at the time of the storm. So I got a couple of phone calls from people asking about what are we going to do with the houses that have changed hands? And I actually, one of the other individuals that started the conversation with me was somebody who works here at City Hall. Because as people sell their homes and they're selling them not repaired, the new owners are going to repair them, or maybe they're going to tear them down and rebuild. Those individuals do not qualify for 0 permit fees. And just MGO, I know that our staff loves it. I don't love it because it doesn't extrapolate information, true data that you want. The numbers, these are hand-kept numbers. A lot of it has been, and I can't wait to see when they go for the next training, whether or not MGO has the ability to have add-ons that will give us the data that the staff has worked really hard to keep track of, and not have to work so hard in the event that we have another storm like this. But I did want to bring up about the permitting for properties that change hands, just to make sure that we get something in place so that we're capturing those dollars. Because again, the intent was to help our residents, not to help new people who've moved into the community. They don't get that benefit.
Yes,
Yes. Thank you.
thank you for highlighting that.
Yes. Next on the agenda is the FY 2025 financial presentation through January 2025. And I will hand this to our finance director.
Great, thank you. So I won't spend too much time on this because I think by now you've gotten kind of the format on the presentation. So we just want to give another periodic update. I think the last one I gave was last workshop a month ago. So here's just one more month of data, but basically the same format that I've provided to you all previously. So agenda is the same. We'll do a little revenue and expense analysis, multi-year comparison over a 3-year period for various revenues to kind of see where we're at in light of the hurricane, revenue reductions in certain areas. We'll talk through some hurricane-related expenses, and then just the latest and greatest on where we're at on damage assessment. So ad valorem taxes, October through January collections, looking great so far. So increase in 25. Again, to just reiterate, my concern will be later in the spring, summer, when our future distributions, I believe, will be lessened due to the netting of refunds to property owners that file the Form DR 465. Then the next one is non-exchange revenues, so other taxes, franchise fees, state shared revenues. Again, nothing, now we're through, this is October to December. Most of these are October through January. Given the timing of collections, we definitely had collection data through December, and then some of them come in like around mid-month the following month, so didn't have everything. So through January, so just wanted to make sure we had an apples to apples comparison, just did October through December. So those first 3 months, 23, 24, and 25, some little reductions in some areas. The most heavy hit is franchise fees and utility service fee, it's utility service taxes that are transaction-based on utility bills. So that's where we're seeing a little bit of loss there in '25 compared to previous years. And then building and planning revenues. So our BTRs, our business tax receipts, pretty steady, not much revenue out of those. Impact fees have a slight creep up from 2024 to 2025. But you see where the largest hit is in our permit inspection and plan review fees. Just to give you a bigger picture, we got about $1 million or so in fund balance as of the beginning of this fiscal year. We're about $379,000, we'll call it in the hole, where expenses have thus far exceeded revenues. But some of that are more one-time capital related. I think we have about $112,000 in capital, CapEx expenses relating to the building department and downstairs in the code enforcement day room. But yeah, we are in a deficit position, but we do have a healthy fund balance in the building fund, about a million or so as of the beginning of this fiscal year. Next one is fees for services. So fire EMS contractual, that's contractual. That's not changing despite the hurricane. Sanitation, stormwater charges, those have been solid and steady. I know we've got plans coming up to potentially reduce sanitation fees, but thus far, those have been holding steady. And then a little decline in our recreation and marina fees. And then parking is obviously taking a hit as well, definitely on the fines considerably, and then on the parking fees themselves. We have been collecting some money, so over $300,000 in collections year to date, but that's a far cry from $700,000 to $800,000 over the past 2 years, so less than half. And then this next slide just provides just the actual detailed numbers. First was the graphical bar chart depiction. Now here's the actual numbers, and we see the uptick in revenues to 11% October to January, and then from 23 to 24, but then we're down 9% 24 to 25. Not a significant decline again because of the ad valorem revenue collections that have been higher and a little bit higher in 2025 compared to 24. And then again, just in October through December revenue comparison for some other intergovernmental, other types of tax revenues from 23, 24, 25. And then the budget versus actual analysis, we went through this last meeting where we had some overages. So we have a mid-year budget amendment resolution that'll be forthcoming. We put that to you that we'll do for mid-year, and hopefully we won't have to make another amendment for the rest of the fiscal year for 25, but mainly that mid-year budget amendment will be to account for all the disaster-related expenses, namely the debris removal is by far the largest that we'll need to do an amendment for. Then just on the next slide on hurricane-related expenses, Helene, Milton, just that comparison. Helene, obviously much more significant. So we're a little over 4 million now. So that's that. Now we're starting to get invoiced for the debris collection and removal services. And the next slide gives us our largest vendors, who they are and what they were spent on. So you see we're about 2.8, 2.9 million, almost 3 million in debris removal. Obviously by far the lion's share. And then you just see some others from Lux Flush, the bathroom rentals, the Serve Pro on flood damage remediation work, and right on down the list. And that's at the 3.5 million total from those largest vendors, and then the total is a little over 4 million. So that's the vast majority is what you see here from these largest vendors. And then same thing with Milton, obviously much less damage from Milton, but those are the expenses on the Milton side. And the last piece is just the damage assessment. This is largely the same as what we presented before, but I did want to just highlight the differences. So that's why I highlighted those in yellow, so you can see anything that's changed from the last presentation I gave you in January. So we break that out between just land and infrastructure, a lot of pocket parks or parks and related structures that are not related to a facility or equipment or vehicle. So that's really everything else. That's the land and infrastructure, mostly in public works. And then a little bit in the end on here on recreation. And then facilities, we see our facilities. And then vehicles is the last, and then the second last, and then equipment is the final. And just to give you a little update just on insurance proceeds, we have thus far received $622,000 in insurance. The largest one is a check that we just received on February 25th. So that was yesterday. We received a check for payment for $295,000, and that was for the Elgin street sweeper that got flooded out. So we did get insurance proceeds for that, and also have pending payments of about $161,000. So total there, $784,000 insurance proceeds received, and then we're expecting in the imminent future. Any questions?
Do we have any public comment?
Now I see where my original question was. So are these estimates that we should be able to be receiving FEMA money for because of the hurricanes?
Commission? Questions, comments?
Yeah, I have one. Regarding the reduction in the public works fees that we were charging from $38 to $10, have you had an opportunity to see how that will impact, and will we be able to sustain that hit?
So that's on the sanitation side, so that'll affect the sanitation fund. Currently performing that analysis, so I don't have that ready for you
Okay.
today, but we will be providing that.
Just want to make sure it doesn't fall off our
next
plate. I
meeting.
just want, I mean, want to make sure that we understand what we approved.
Yep, I believe my plan was to provide that
We'll
for
have-
the second reading of the,
Oh,
Yeah, we'll
Okay,
have
that's
that at the
right,
March
that's right,
12th
got it.
meeting.
All right, thank you.
So between the insurance and FEMA, the lion's share of all this is taken care of as far as lost revenue. Have you submitted, and has that been approved for the 10-year non-interest bearing loan?
we're working through that as well. So remember, the next step will be going through that process, understanding the amount, and then coming back to you all with my proposed amount and then terms of repayment. So that is forthcoming.
Okay, is there a deadline on that?
September 30, I believe. So we do have a while on it, but I'll be jumping on it now.
Okay, and Mr. Dillon has been so gracious to sit here all night with us. I'll make sure we don't typically answer questions, but I want to make sure that that's addressed. I don't remember exactly what it was.
Sure, I'm happy to. I believe this question was just about reimbursement and FEMA and timing. So we did take advantage of an opportunity to get advanced receipts based on projections. And so we based that on for certain types of project expenditures for Cat A, namely, which is debris removal, which again is by far the largest source of our storm-related expenditures. So I put that together, submitted that to FDEM, Department of Emergency Management Services, and got approval for that, and we did receive about $6.5 million. And so of that, we've already spent almost $3 million in just the debris removal. But the good news is that from a cash flow standpoint, we did get that money up front. The actual reimbursement from FEMA, so that's three sources, right? Well, technically two sources. We did receive that money up front. That's FEMA money, but that came passed through the state, and the state was the intermediary to review the documentation I submitted, make the approval, get the money out. So that was to get money out for certain eligible Cat A that's not only incurred, but expected to be incurred. And so that's been taken care of. The next is the insurance proceeds that we've received in the process of receiving of $700,000, $800,000. And then the rest is everything that we will be submitting to FEMA, which includes the hard costs, things paid to vendors for goods and services, for repair, remediation, rebuild, And then also other soft costs, which will be emergency pay to employees, certain administrative costs incurred by the city, even our own time incurred to help administer the FEMA grant and project and planning and reimbursement submission. So all that will be submitted, and that's always also in the process of going through that. Now, the reimbursement horizon isn't pretty. That's, it's more like years instead of months to be reimbursed by FEMA, but we're gonna do everything that we need to do to try to get to maximize our reimbursement.
Two other comments, the impact fees being greater in 2025, October through January collections than in any previous year. That we're not getting any of that, or hardly any of that from commercial. It's all residential, which I just would like to just keep bringing that up because it's not a dead subject. And then as far as the ad valorem taxes, we do expect a hit on that, but I think between I think that the actual increase in ad valorem taxes to follow within the following year is going to far offset any decreases that we see this spring. That's just my opinion, because you're going to have so many new builds that are going to be of higher value. But it's more of a comment
I
than a
mean,
question.
interrupt you, Commissioner, but I don't believe they will be taxed at a higher value. Mr.
Well-
Twitty gave yeah, you keep, if it's homesteaded, you will keep your Save Our Homes.
On up to 110% of
Right.
the total, the gross area. However, when you raise a home, just by raising the home, if you finish any of the area below it and put a garage in or whatever, that's gonna offset more over the extra 10%. If you finish the garage out that you lifted the home, the same footprint, again, that's gonna exceed that extra 10%. And all of that extra space is gonna be taxed out of the homestead. So revenues will increase. I guarantee it. Because that's not, with our impact fee, at least it was strictly the air-conditioned space. You're gonna have patios underneath, you're gonna have, all that space is gonna have some portion of assessed value, and what they will do is they're gonna take the new just market value on that space at whatever percentage it is to the base. And taxes are going up. Don't let them kid you.
Well, no, we'll just wait to see what the property appraiser provides. I mean, we just don't know precisely what that might look like.
Sure. And yeah, many factors to consider, like what our single-family home ratio will be of investor-owned properties. If that changes over time with sales activity, and then now you've got investors that they don't have the homesteaded protection.
I'm just saying, I think there's some in our community that are concerned about that shortfalls in ad valorem taxes in the short term next year, with the rebates. How are the rebates, the refunds gonna impact the city? Personally, I don't have zero concern. It may be something you can add to the loss in revenue for the loan and make sure that that's in your calculations.
It will be the
Yeah, well,
cornerstone of my calculation, yes.
But overall, I think for many years to come, that financially, the city's going to benefit from.
Well, as we mentioned for the loan, for example, I mean, we have a loss of parking revenue, several $100,000 already, and that's going to continue at least through March. We're hoping April, when we hope to have the Archibald Park parking lot reopen. Right now, we're down, that combined with Stewart Park, we're down about 114 parking spaces. out of 530. So our revenues are doing well for the current month in parking, and they do well when the weather is nice. But yeah, we've, and the few others that Mr. Laughlin pointed out, so that'll all be, as we've stated, part of the loan to recover that lost revenue.
Commissioners?
Nope. Great job.
No comment.
If, Mayor, if I just a couple of quick updates regarding some of the repairs I mentioned. Archibald Park, a contractor, was working on wall. Today, we will be milling and resurfacing the lot as well as making some curb repairs to the lot. And then the bathroom building should be completed, I think, probably middle of April or end of April. Megan, when will the bathroom building be completed?
The bathroom will be completed by April 1st.
So we hope to have the new bathrooms and the lot reopened about that time. The snack shack will be more time. Discussions I had with our lessees, the contract that's there, they've requested a longer term agreement. I'll be having another discussion with them, but just wanted to mention to all of you that that's the request. Staff and I have been sort of discussing a little bit, not exactly sure what that will look like, but we will definitely bring that back to you at the March workshop if we choose, whatever we choose, what we recommend, and ultimately the commission approves, will determine kind of how it gets repaired and who, or whether we issue a request for proposals for another concessionaire. We do know that we will not be operating it as a concessionaire, the city. That'd be my recommendation, but, so that one will take a little bit longer time. Stewart Park as well is currently being, Megan, if you, similarly put back together in the design phase.
Currently, we are working on engineering for the seawall. So it may look like nothing is going on there, but the original seawall that was there was not a structural seawall. So what we are looking to put there is a actual seawall, much to the same of what Archibald is, because we know that that held up. But with that, anything that is over 2 feet that is on the west side of Gulf Boulevard has to go through a wave run-up analysis to make sure that it can withstand the velocity of a storm. So we are in the process of that. I do not have a timeline on the engineering, but I can definitely have an update for you at the next meeting.
All the other parking lot accesses, including some of the ones that only have 2 spaces, like at 131st, have reopened. So all those spaces from 136 South to Johns Pass Park have reopened. We still have, and Megan, you can correct me, there's still 3 or 4 beach access points north of Stewart that are still closed. I know, like the one at 142nd, 41st, 42nd remains closed, and
42nd, 48th, and 154th are still closed.
we'll look to reopen those obviously as soon as we can get them repaired.
We have 142nd included in with the Archibald because that is quite a large access. So that is included on the proposal that we will bring back to you for March 12th.
And then just other, since Krabby's here at the marina, I think Krabby pretty much finished all the marina repairs. We're working on the seawall, as I mentioned earlier, which is not really storm related, but just about everything else has been put back together. I don't think we're missing anything. The sign at the front out on 150th for the marina. For recreation, Jay, I know that's an item coming up, but just to give a quick overview of recreation.
Looking to begin repairs on Monday. So, and they said it's just about 3 to 4 weeks. Should have us back in about April 1st as well. So.
The park, just about everything at Rock Park has been put back together, including the shading. I think just a little bit of the fencing is missing near
Yeah,
the playground.
Curbing and fencing, those are the two. We were supposed to have a quote for fencing today, but they don't do taller than 8 feet. So we're having some weird run-ins with random contractors. But the fencing is the last piece of the puzzle to let people in the park to repair everything, and then we want to get the fencing done last. So.
Thank you. And then the last one, the building that we're in, our downstairs, we are having, Jenny, I know we talked a little bit about downstairs and having an engineer take a look at it. We found some, I don't know what we would call them, when the building was built out and originally.
Yeah, so we are still waiting for a proposal about the build out, and to see exactly what failed and what happened downstairs. So we're waiting for proposals for both of those things.
Those were the updates just for structures. Oh, and I'm sorry, and the last one, and to get your input, the commission's input, what do we call it? The Welcome Center Information Center at Johns Pass Village. The Tampa Bay Beaches Chamber that was operating it is no longer operating it. I think a lot of their materials are in there. We notified them. They said they could just be disposed of, whatever was in there. So we are going to clean it out and take any suggestions that the commission may have, but we were contemplating using it as an information center as well, but more of an office for our parking staff out on the village, and as they go and patrol and just work out of kind of a satellite office in the village, but just a discussion that we had, nothing final yet. And if, I
Is
mean,
that-
sorry, go
Is
ahead.
that air conditioned?
Yes.
Yeah, it has a AC wall unit.
It has a wall unit, yeah. We will be removing the contents tomorrow, and then you will notice that there is going to be paper up on the windows because right now it's pretty unsightly. So once we kind of spray it with bleach, and then we'll do the demolition sometime next week.
Interior demolition.
Yeah, no, that sounds.
Correct.
Yeah, not
Sorry,
tearing the
interior.
building down.
You're not tearing the building down.
Right.
So,
Sounds reasonable.
Yeah. I took 78 complete demos. Those aren't all residential.
Right. There's
I know. How many of those are commercial buildings? Do you know, Jenny?
just got it.
There was at least 5.
No, I
Yeah.
don't. I'm sorry. We could bring that.
I just
back
wanted to
out.
make sure that
Yeah.
Commissioner Kerr, because
The
you were
impact
talking.
fees,
Hmm?
impact fees.
No, on our list where it said 78 full
78.
demos, they're not all houses.
Okay.
Some of them were
Commercial.
commercial buildings.
Say
Just
4,
5.
5.
The last I heard, it was 5.
5.
So I have some comments and questions. The one thing that I noticed on the update was on a lot of the different parking lots, like 130th, 131st, 32nd, 34th, 35th, and so on, they have waiting for direction. So if they're open, what are you waiting for direction on, Megan?
The issue with those parking lots where they were all freshly paved,
Uh-huh.
and when the cleanup occurred, the new asphalt sustained a lot of damage, meaning scrapes taken out of them. Eventually down the road, that will cause issues with potholes and water intrusion. So I am looking for direction. Do we want to proceed with getting a proposal and trying to submit that to FEMA? I'm not really sure how we want to proceed with that.
Why wouldn't we?
We will definitely submit to FEMA. I think the question now is really I think, Megan, whether we mill and resurface them.
Yes,
I
do
mean,
we
that-
wait?
That's the only way really, and if you go down, if you walk to any of them and even other parts, I can't remember where I was, but there's some significant
John's Pass
scrapes.
Park.
Right, no, I
Yeah.
know. So that's what I see the waiting for direction, and I think no better time than now to have the discussion. Because the one thing I'm certain of, the wheels of government turn really, really, really slow. And we only get to meet and discuss things once a month and vote on things once a month. So timeliness being able to give you direction and let you move forward, because I know you don't have enough to do.
I will proceed with proposals and
Yeah,
bring those back.
I mean, I would think that's what we would want to do, and especially if September's our cutoff to submit to FEMA, I wouldn't think you'd want to be waiting until the last minute to then really have to rush and do things.
Great point.
So the chamber building and the snack shack, I think it's really disappointing that the chamber building was left in the condition that it was left in. And my understanding in asking questions is that the chamber building and the snack shack both have triple net leases. And although I understand that major damage from a storm would not be repaired underneath the leasee, but it's disappointing that someone would walk away from a building that they paid. How much did the chamber pay to rent that building from us?
They paid us $1 a year?
One whole
One-
dollar.
one
Yeah,
dollar.
I mean, it was.
And the
just-
storm came through and flooded it, and they never even bothered to clean it out. And I just think that that is horrible, terrible, my opinion. I agree. I think it'd be a great place to have a satellite office for parking. Maybe have somebody in there, a volunteer part-time to be able to be an information resource for residents or visitors alike. I shared with, I can't remember if I shared it with Megan or Robin or maybe both, that I remember back when or maybe even Jamal, when parking was really getting going, and there was discussion in the chamber about having parking attendants and how a parking attendant walking around John's Pass would be so wonderful because people would see somebody in a Madeira Beach shirt, driving a Madeira Beach vehicle, and they could ask questions to get directions or where, to eat or whatever a resident or a visitor would need information for. So to me, that's like a no-brainer to put somebody down there that is representing the city and utilize that space because it's a cute little space. It's right there on the corner. It's so central. That's my opinion. But the other question that I wanted to ask is, I was over at Snack Shack. It's been, I think, 2 weeks ago now, so this could have changed that I was walking around. And the back porch area where the tiki hut used to be and all, there's stuff back there like a ice machine, there's debris all over the deck. And that's not ours. That's the people, it's owned by the people who lease it. So why haven't they cleaned that up? Have we asked them to clean that up? Have we pushed them to clean that up?
Yeah, when I met with them, that was
It-
remove all your equipment out of there, but I mean, they haven't removed everything. And I think there were still some items inside.
Yeah, there was.
So yeah, when I meet with them, I'll ask them to remove everything or,
Well, because I would think that, I mean, when I went over there that day and I saw it, I mean, the storm came, the water came in, the water went out, and it left all this debris, and it's just still sitting there. So people are going to walk around there, and that's not very safe. So
It's a blemish.
it is a blemish, and I mean, if it can't be open, it should at least look nice. And if they're gonna come and ask us to extend a lease, I would like to ask the commission if anyone had eaten there or been there prior to the storm and noticed the disrepair that was going on. I was there one day having lunch and sitting at the outside bar and looking up, there was code violations for wiring that they are responsible for. And just, you could look around and see disrepair that was not being taken care of. And if we're going to extend a lease, I would think that we would want someone who cared enough about our property to take care of it. And it didn't seem to me from where I was sitting that that was something they did. I'm not advocating getting rid of them. I'm just saying if the responsibility is to care for the property, then who's responsible for enforcing to make sure they're taking care of it? Because we weren't doing a good job, and I would presume, because I had never noticed it, I had never sat there. until several months ago. I had sat out like under in the picnic tables and that sort of thing, but had never really paid attention up towards the building. So I think that's important to remember when we think about what we want to do there.
Perhaps that needs to be written into the lease
It
agreement.
was in the
Well, it
lease.
is.
Well, as far as inspections,
I think it was in the, I think it is.
but who was responsible for
I don't recall.
inspections? The city?
Well,
The city
Yeah,
is
we're-
And
responsible,
was
yeah.
the city doing inspections?
I mean, periodically, and we wouldn't tell them, you need, make sure that it's well maintained. I think we would obviously need to be much more specific and explain exactly, what needs to be done, but.
I think it's important whoever's going to be there and rent that space from us, because we own it, it's a reflection on the city. And if the city doesn't care enough to keep the property that we own in good repair, then what does that say to the resident or other business owners who are being made to keep their properties in code compliant? So, so Jenny, you touched on the downstairs. So I am interested to just keep it for us to understand the flood panels failed. I did have some discussion with Holden about those, and he was telling me, talking about the foam that went around that could have been crimped or something to let it in. So I'm very interested to know why it failed. Was it that the foam crimped? Was it that they weren't tight enough? Is it that when we store those panels, we should remove that foam and then put it on when it's time to put it up so that there is no kinks or folds or anything in it and it gets a good seal? And last week or the week before last, I was here at City Hall and it was raining. And I went down and got a chance to look at the downstairs, the way it looks now. And, they only got like this much of water downstairs. So it did not get a ton of water, but you lost this much drywall because of the standard cutout. But while I was down there, I had not been into the new area that's just built out. And when I went into that area, it was flooding. There was water coming in the door, flowing right in. It was flowing all the way down to the back wall, and the water was over to the cabinets. So when I looked at it, so when you walk out the door from the existing building department area that we've had for several years, and you walk out into the new area, the floor is completely the same. So when this building was built, those floors were built down there on a slope so that when it rained, the water would slope away. So somehow when we designed that area down there, I don't know, I would like to know, which is why I'm asking, was it the architect? Was it the engineer? Was it our building official? Who's the person who decided that we could just throw up some walls, not level any floors off, and that would be okay because it rains in there? That space, you can't put furniture in there. And so you could see all the sloping. You walk out the door and there's like when you walk out of the door and there's a slope down to kind of walk down. So when you walk out, because the whole floor is painted gray, I did not recognize that it's that way. If you just walked out, you would just lose your feet out from under you because you just don't notice it. I did not anyhow. But, so the flooring is the original concrete, and I would like for us to understand how that happened, and the reason I think we need to understand that is because moving forward, when the city's doing projects, who's overseeing it? Who's signing off on, I guess we didn't have to have permits because our building department did it, or I don't know, but there's $250,000 been spent down there, and you cannot use that space as it sits currently. We will have to spend more money to use that space, if that is even possible, to repair it to be able to. I think I'm done. Let me just check my notes. Well, those things I see and I want to share because I want you guys, I want all of us to understand that. And And if, whatever the issue is, I think that however that got down there got approved to be built, I mean, the money was approved here, but when it was approved to be built, I think that we should understand how that process happened so that it doesn't happen again in the future.
Isn't that in litigation with the insurance company or
No.
something? Or with the flood
No, that's for
barrier
the
people?
fire and the
Yeah.
recreation building.
I'm talking about the area
Under
that
the
we
stairs right out
just
here.
built out
Oh,
underneath,
underneath
this
this-
brand-new area that we
here.
just enclosed for the,
I thought you were talking about over.
no, it's the one right down here where the sheriff's department is going to,
Hmm.
it's
Where was the water coming from?
right through the front door,
From the rain?
right? Yep. Because it's built on a slope. So when you open the front door, the lip is here, it's like, I don't know, like this to the door. And the water just is there and it's coming right through the cracks, right into and I don't believe that we did a flood panel for that door. And how did we do that? The whole premise of building that downstairs, the original, was that it was flood-proofed so that it wouldn't get wet, which it did. And we all know, and there's some sort of issue, which they'll figure out. But then we build in a whole new section and spend $250,000. And you can't even use it for storage unless you're willing to let the stuff in it be in a humid environment because it's going to have wetness in it.
Great.
So that is all I had. Thank you very much.
Thanks for bringing that to our attention, Mayor.
We are still looking, obviously, for how to correct, repair, et cetera, and we will bring that back to you, obviously, at each workshop until we get some resolution.
If we could just understand the process of how it got approved, like who were the people who reviewed the plans and approved it, is my question. So that we don't have that happen again. Any more comments? Thank you. Next on the.
Wait,
you
I
want-
did have one more
yes.
comment. It had nothing to do with that. I was waiting. The seawall crabbing. So that's coming up. They're gonna be doing that soon?
The construction started already, but we had to take a pause, and Krabby can provide some details.
And,
They started driving the vinyl panels down the wall. And then they got to a point with the grant that we received that the man arrays, which is like a tieback for the seawall, was not US made steel.
okay,
So in that Build Back America Better grant, it has to be made there. So they had to reorder it. So
okay.
that's going to be 4 to 6 weeks, but it'll be well within the timeline completed. And I kind of told them, well, let's just kind of put a hold on it because we got grunt hunt coming up and everything. So let's not just tear everything up. We'll just leave it as it is if you're not going to be able to complete it or start working on it. So just put a hold and we'll get it done after grunt hunt.
All right, well, my question is related to the seawall, but you have a launch area there that, do you use that second?
The ramp that's out in front of the ship store there,
Yeah,
we can't use it because of the grant that we received from FWC to build the other.
okay. So why don't we take this opportunity to have the seawall extended to close that off?
That is in the plans for next year to go from there down to that seawall. The one issue that I kind of have is my neighbor there. He just likes to tie stuff up to that seawall, and it's very, very.
So that part of the seawall is not part of the grant that we got to do. We're not doing that part of the seawall.
No, not that part.
Okay,
Yeah.
but go ahead.
But the submerged land lease that he has runs all the way out and out to our fuel dock.
Okay,
So technically that's submerged land at his end. Now he can't access that submerged land by using our property, but I just know that if I extend that out right now, as it goes, if you've been back there in the marina and look at how many boats that is back there, they're piled on top of each other.
no,
back
I
in there.
understand. I
And
was
they're just gonna work their way our direction if I close that in right now.
that 16-foot gap where the launch is, I was just wondering if that when you're putting
Yeah,
putting in the new seawall, if you could just go.
Yeah, the plan is we're gonna close that in, make that the new washdown area.
Okay,
And then that way we can put in proper drainage and matting and things like that, that's DEP approved. And then go ahead and make more parking where the current washdown area is at right now.
we have a mind meld, so that's good. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is Public Works, Johns Pass North Jetty update.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. What I bring before you is just an update from the last time we met, and I don't remember, I think that was in the January workshop. The only changes that you will see to this are just some dates from which Pinellas County had, after our initial discussion with Army Corps, and Army Corps telling us that we did not need a 408 permit. Pinellas County, once we had had that conversation with them, then reached out to the 408, and now we will have to apply for a 408 application, which we don't really foresee as being a big issue. We're in the process of doing the design, but we just have to get some surveying together and then submit that to FDEP, Pinellas County, Army Corps, and the 408 section. So once we receive all of that, which we're pretty sure from the discussions that we had, we will be exempt from FDEP, Pinellas County, and Army Corps, but not the 408. But we don't foresee a big issue with that because we will be above the mean high tide line. And then you will also see in this that there was another company that reached out to us that supply much like a Moby mat, but it's a different fabric. So you'll see in this that that is cheaper. So I'm just looking to see if you would like to proceed with that temporary Moby mat that we had talked about. I believe it's, the pictures that you see in here are still the same as they were the last time. If you would like me to go ahead and proceed with the permitting, which is not a problem. I just literally permitted a Moby mat for 136 beach access with a matter of sending an aerial and sending dimensions, and received the permit within 24 hours. So I don't foresee that being an issue whatsoever.
There's no one here for public comment. Commissioners?
I'm okay with you moving forward.
I thought this was approved. Wasn't this approved already?
Approved for the purchase of the mobility mat?
Yeah,
I think,
Yeah, the Moby mat.
I think we were just,
It was a discussion.
That was at a workshop?
I believe so. Robin and I had talked about it, and we wanted to ensure that,
Okay, I was under the impression that we approved it if you had a need for it in another place.
we had discussed that we can, once we are completed with it there, it
That
is
would-
movable to move it to a different
And you
section.
had a need for it at another place.
I wouldn't necessarily say a need, but we have a use for it.
Yeah, you have other beach entries that could use it.
Correct.
Yeah, it's a very nice feature to have.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, it is.
Now, the cheaper version of the Moby mat, have you seen that? Have you tested it? Is it?
I have not. He just reached out between the last meeting and within the last couple of weeks. I believe he's supposed to be sending me locations that do have this mat, so I will go check it out. It's not a significant savings, so we do have, now we have 4 Moby mats, and I've, knock on wood, not had any issues with any of them. And our oldest one was at Archibald, and I think we've had it for 2 or 3 years.
Is there a relationship benefit to not even, if it's not that much difference, to just continue, since you have all your other Moby mats with the same? I mean,
I'm
I
at
would,
the
I would leave
pleasure
that,
of whatever the decision is for you all.
I would leave that to your judgment, in my opinion. You're living it, but if it's, not significant, less than 10% difference or whatever, I don't know how much they cost, but.
I believe the
in
one,
the
the Moby
package.
mat was
in the package.
6,200.
I'm looking at the pictures,
Sorry, yeah, it's
There you go.
6205 for the regular,
and so it's another $1,200 difference.
yes, approximately.
Well, that is significant. I'd check it out. Personally. Don't like to spend the residents' money when we don't need to. And of course, our other grants.
I will look into grants for this. We did receive a grant for our original Moby Mat. I can reach out to HUD to see if they would like to fund the grant, or the price, but I didn't have the exact direction, so I didn't want to put that out
Cart
there
before the
without.
horse.
Correct. I couldn't think
Okay.
of that terminology. Yes,
All right, please do. Thank you.
absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Thank
Thank
you.
Megan, when would you think we'll be building the concrete walk?
I would love to give you an exact date, but I don't have that because I have not applied for a 408 permit. And as we've known from the past, Army Corps permitting can be lengthy. I'm hoping that that process would only be a few months, but I don't want to give you incorrect information.
And we would need to bring you back, I don't mean to interrupt, but we would need to bring you back all the details,
Correct.
the proposed design, the engineering, everything,
The bid.
including a cost which we do not know
Mm-mm.
at this time, but I think we're estimating it would be a couple $100,000 to place back.
Yes, yeah, I mean, we're talking, just the design is probably going to be a few months. The bid is definitely a 3 to 4 month. So we're looking at a minimum of 8 months just with that, roughly. And then permitting without however long that may be.
I'm thinking that Moby Mat is generally for ADA accessibility. But what I see out there, mostly fishermen and a lot of young people that just like to access the water and enjoy the rocks. I'm not for it. I'm sorry. I think we should concentrate on building the actual concrete walk. And I had recommended for it to be 8 foot wide and, build it so that a lot more people can enjoy it and it would not be damaged by excessive use of fishing and casting a net, casting I guess, trying to catch fish. So I'm sorry, I'm not for it.
But also, we have to make it accessible for the handicap also, correct? If someone's in a wheelchair and wants to go out there and can't get out there because there's no mat there.
Correct. And there are a lot of handicapped disabled people that do
Yeah,
visit John's Pass Park with wheelchairs and walkers.
walkers.
Yes, and currently they've been using the beach access, the wooden walkover.
And we're
Yes.
limited right now also,
Right,
correct?
we are.
Yes, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have one more question.
Yep.
Is the Moby Mat made in the US, and is the Access Rec made in the US?
As I stated, this is a new company that I've not worked with before, so I can research that.
Yeah,
I am
please.
not sure. Sure.
I think that makes a difference.
So I think it'd be interesting for you to go see and see if, maybe it's the exact same one. I haven't received any complaints about the John's Pass fishing, the jetty, since the debris, since you finished the removal of all the rocks and the rebar and all of that. And when I've been down there, there's always quite a number of people fishing. To Commissioner Kerr, if HUD would pay or help pay, that would be awesome. I'd be interested to know if they were doing that. And two, whether or not these are just the same products, because how sometimes somebody sells the same thing. But what I noticed in the quote when I looked at it is the new company is giving you, even though the original company gives you a discount, the new company's giving you almost a $1,300 discount. So if they're giving you that this time, would they give that to you next time? And I do believe that relationships are a big deal when you're purchasing and doing things. So it would be interesting for that information, but you could probably have that by a voting meeting, right? You think?
Absolutely.
I
Yes,
mean, would it be easy to determine whether or not HUD had money to pay for that, or if they had anything out there that, not that you can come in and say, I've got it, but you could come in and say, yes, I can apply for it. They've
I
got
can
it
reach out
out there to
tomorrow.
apply.
And they're usually pretty responsive, so I would think that if I reach out tomorrow, I should have a response by Friday. or
That would be
some-
awesome.
Sometime.
That'd be awesome. Anything else? Next on the agenda is approval of purchase. Oh, no, it's not, sorry. It's the ITB 2502 purchase rear load replacement containers contract approval.
Hello again. So as we all know, Helene did a tremendous amount of damage to our dumpsters. We lost several. We still don't know where they are. Many ended up in people's backyards and their pools. Some are still popping up in the intercoastal in places. And the ones that were not lost were completely submerged. So what we're finding with those, because they are metal, that they are rusting out very quickly, and or the casters are failing. So every year we purchase around $30,000 worth of dumpsters. With the substantial needs that we need this year, Robin and I discussed just placing a bid out to ensure that we get the best price. So with that, Iron Container, which is our current vendor, came in at the lowest price. So what I am proposing is that we proceed with awarding a 3-year contract with Iron Container, and that will allow that the current containers that we do have that we can salvage, that we can swap parts out and not have multiple different pieces of equipment out there.
There's no one here for public comment. Commissioners?
I thought I saw. Gonna change your ways, are you?
He pointed his hand
Yeah,
that way.
intentional.
Were you commenting? Go ahead.
I should be fair. It's really not fair of me, is it? To always look to the right first?
Well, we could use their wisdom. It has actually given me a chance to learn and educate myself with the sport and all the questions.
You're in the
So-
hot seat.
Yes, I am. So is this something that we can apply FEMA for reimbursement? I mean, I know we need it and we have to purchase them, but is it something that we could probably recoup the money from FEMA?
We will submit the invoices to FEMA for reimbursement, but I don't know that we would have an answer back on that for, as Robin stated, or Andrew, it can take quite some time.
Yeah, everything storm-related, as we've stated multiple times, will be submitted to FEMA for reimbursement. It's on the schedules that we have provided, so everything that is storm-related that you will likely hear some of them all the way until September, we will submit to FEMA to be reimbursed if our insurance does not, for those amounts that our insurance has not or will not cover.
And of course, since we've lost them, they believe that we had them, right? We've lost. I guess they believe that we've had these,
Dumpsters?
Yeah, I don't think that matters. What matters is that we've stated, these are damaged and misplaced due to the storm. And as we provide the invoices and a narrative as to what happened, that's what FEMA has requested of us to do for reimbursement for storm damage.
thank you.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a great necessity, and we have a great relationship, so, the 3-year term with Iron Container, I think it's a great idea.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's all.
I was just looking through, I thought this was a line item already.
Oh.
On the, what was going in for FEMA, but it doesn't matter. I mean, it does, but we'll submit that. Yeah, I mean, you bid them out and it worked out to be the same vendor. Great, let's move forward.
It also saved us money previously to me getting a quote from them before I had issued the bid, so.
So the new price is lower than the old price.
Correct, and we don't pay for freight. They are just down in South Florida, but still we were paying for freight, which covers a couple dumpsters with the
Yeah.
amount of,
That's big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Thanks for sorting this all out. I would approve the contract iron container for 3 years.
Thank you.
I would also, Megan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is approval of purchase for rear load containers.
So to follow with that, this is to replace dumpsters that we do need. We have a lot of restaurants that are reopening and we have a lot of containers that are in very rough shape. So they are falling apart and or will be very soon. And the lead time on these dumpsters is probably 6 to 8 weeks. So the sooner we get them, the better. And anything that we have as a backup goes over to 5094 Street to our Blue Barn, extra storage, whatever you want to call it.
There's no one here for public comment. Commissioners?
So it's a necessity, I'm for it.
Thank you.
I also agree, definitely.
Commissioners?
No comment.
It's the same company, Iron Container?
Correct.
Yeah, I'm all for it.
Me too.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is City Street Ends project update.
So this is just to give you all an update. As we know, the storm wreaked havoc on all of the city. So a couple of these project areas look a little bit different. And I think that we are maybe seeking or need to discuss one of them in particular. As you see through going through the plans, number 2, 134th Avenue East, that has a red X through it. And the reason for that being is because that home that shared the driveway with that park has now been demolished. So we will no longer need to provide a driveway through the street end into that parcel. So we will, when that new plan comes in, we will make them connect directly to Boca Ciega Avenue. The other location would be 134th and Boca Ciega Drive. Changing Tides does have a application in for a complete demolition. So with that same street end, we were providing, or we were putting in parking, vehicular pavers for parking. We will no longer need to do that either because I've received clarification that once the new development comes in, they will then have to provide ample parking. So those two areas will look a little bit different, but still match the idea. I'll just have to figure out a way to incorporate on the this one that Robin has up on the screen because we didn't have any planters in that location because of the vehicular pavers and just the short area that we had to work with there. So I am working with planning and zoning to help. I'm not great at filling out the ISR worksheets and working through the permit, but they are going to help me with that. And we will place it out to bid and then bring that back before you for your approval or direction on how we proceed.
There's no one here for public comment. Commissioners' comments?
Were there any easement associated with these properties that specifically maybe access?
For the driveways, no, sir. They're specifically deeded as street ends, meaning that, and Trask can help me if I butcher this.
They're actually platted, they're platted.
Platted
all the
right
way
away.
to Platted streets.
So it's a right away.
I see.
So we have to provide access to neighboring, which we will. They will still have access if needed. But no easements required.
Would we have to build the driveway for them or they'll do it themselves?
We will not allow them to have a driveway through the street end. They will
No.
connect,
They have to reroute their driveway, right?
they will have to reroute their driveway
So
with their
they'll-
new
they'll
plan.
pay for it.
Yes, that will be in their development.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Are you talking about the new property or the existing? I think there's.
I
some
believe
confusion.
are you referring to which property?
This is the first property that. you showed.
134th Avenue.
Yes, so you're basically cutting off their access.
There's no,
So that's-
the house has been demolished. The
They
house
will,
is no
yeah,
longer
they
there.
will no longer need
I
access
see.
through the street
Okay.
end because the house is now gone. They will have to have access from
Off of
Boca
the-
Ciega.
From Boca
Okay,
Ciega,
yeah.
that street.
That, from
Yes.
Boca Ciega, not 134th.
Right.
Got it.
Previously, their access was through 134th for some reason, street end. And then as
Thank-
well over on the other side
On
of
track.
134th, on the west side, we were going to put pavement, we were going to add 4 parking spaces
Yes.
to accommodate the adjacent structure, the changing tides,
Changing tides.
Motel.
motel. But now they've submitted for a demolition permit, so that structure will be demolished. We will no longer be asphalting, paving that area and supplying the 4 parking spaces. Those are no longer needed. Whatever new structure goes into where the changing tides is located will have to have their own
Own parking.
parking. They will not utilize the street end for parking.
And there's no easement that we have, was that another
It's
right of way?
a right of way.
Right of way, okay.
Yeah, it's just a,
All right.
it's the continuation of 134th.
On street parking.
Yes.
No comment.
Comments?
I do, just because I'm very excited about this. This is something that I've been pushing for since I was elected. All of these parks are in District 1, and for our newest commissioners, we have one park that's gorgeous, and then somehow the funding dropped. And this has been a big request from residents in the area that they were ugly before the hurricane. And we had problems with the access from that one house and the parking. Now all of those barriers are gone, and I'm thrilled to see that we're moving forward with this. I love the plans. I think it looks great.
I would like to make one mention that I did make a whoopsie. During the hurricanes, when I was looking to see what my funding was, I forgot to do a budget amendment to roll this project into 25, so you will see that before you. Andrew will
Thank
bring
you.
that back, so I apologize for that.
Whoopsie.
Whoopsie.
Um,
But
It-
initially, we started planning this with ARPA funds,
Yeah,
right?
did.
And that was, so it just got put in our general fund, but now we're going to budget it back into 2025. So how many million I think we got from, I wrote that down. $2,154,000. So, and and it was earmarks because this fits the requirements for those funds.
Yep.
So indirectly, we're not paying for it.
Awesome.
Much music to my ears. Can any of these, and I've always been against the additional parking, except for 20 feet or 25 feet from the curb, so that, I mean, disaster, I don't want to say I'm excited about that, but it's a nice change as far as I'm concerned. But can any of these street ends be used somehow, designed for additional dog parks?
They already are utilized as dog parks. Are you,
On a
you
leash. I'm
saying
just saying,
to-
are there any of them that basically have fencing on 2 sides already, that you maybe put a little white picket fence and you can take them off leash?
technically, we are not allowed to restrict access to any of those because they are deeded as street ends.
Well, you're not restricting, well,
If you put in a fence, you're restricting access.
you're talking about vehicular access.
I am gonna refer to Trask on this one.
It's a platted street. So it's dedicated to the public, and so we can't put an enclosure around to close it off because of the requirements of the plat. So I would not suggest that you close it off. That doesn't mean that you can't have something on the sides, for example.
I just want to be able to use it as a dog park. We go out here, the dog park needs maintenance on a consistent basis. We need to replace the sod. That means it's down or half of it's down. If we had 2 or 3 of these, we could at least alternate. Okay, this dog park's down for a period of time, or maybe just alternate that so that the turf stays fresh. Always have have 3 dog parks and you have 2 open and 1 down. So I'm just trying to do what's a gain for the neighborhoods, that's all.
You can still have the dog park there, you just can't enclose it. In other words, they can walk their dogs on a leash on the park.
Which they already do. So, yeah.
Very
They
often.
just can't let them run.
Right.
But that's the whole point of a dog park, but.
Could we vacate that right away and make it city-owned, still public, obviously? You can vacate it and do what you want to do, just like,
So if it was vacated, it would be split down the middle. The property owner to the right would own half of it, and the property owner to the left would own half of it. The city would own none of it.
In other words, I don't think we're allowed to vacate to ourselves.
Right. It'd be vacated to the adjoining property owners.
yeah, I can understand.
That doesn't help the
All
situation.
right.
Complications.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is Recreation RFP 25-03 Madeira Beach Recreation Center Interior Hurricane Repairs.
Right. Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. So for the Recreation Center repairs, we initially got a quote from one of the continuing services contractor that we had had previously bid out. And I received a bid that was 5 times the amount of what I got from this bid. So I kicked it out to RFP and we received 8 bids. The most responsive bid came from Grows, it's a GROSZ construction company, at an amount of $57,700. That's the flooring, drywall, paint, basically everything but the cabinetry that we want to put back in the building. We did that intentionally because we want to get back in the building and see things that we liked and didn't like about it. But the basically puts us at a point, we scored those. I've attached the 5 top ones for you all to, and by top, it was the highest scoring, most of which was scored by the pricing. And then based on the responsiveness of the bids, as well as many of their references and contracts that they had. So overall, theirs was the most complete. The highest was myself and staff member Max Mahalski that reviewed this. And we came to this conclusion. So our recommendation would be to approve a construction contract with Grows Construction Company and get this moving as quickly as possible.
And that will have to come back to you at a regular meeting for your approval.
Yes.
Right.
Did you state that you've worked with these people before?
I have not worked with them. From our conversations, though, and from their application, they do have continuing service agreements with numerous cities within the county. And then many of their letters of recommendation and folks that we talked to, one of which is Trans Systems, which is an organization that we've used in the past. So they've come highly recommended, and we're excited about it, so.
Great job, looking over this, all the paperwork, definitely. They've also done work with the city of St. Pete, city of Clearwater, Hernando County, 23 years in business. So great job compiling all the information. It's very important we get that rec center going, you know.
Absolutely. And that just reminded me, so within that, so the 57,700, and then we were looking at 2 types of flooring. If you've been in this room or the rec center, there's a wood plank flooring that was in there. I didn't much care for the initial, it was like a builder's flooring. I was looking at trying to do this wider rollout stuff. And they essentially came back with the quote that we asked for, but also in our discussions leading up to this recommended that we don't use that. They found a better flooring that does have some more thickness, it is more durable, and it's got a better coating on it. So it's gonna be a similar flooring to what was there before, but a much more durable and much easier to place should a chunk be taken out from furniture or whatever else. But it also has a little more padding to it, for falls and random stuff like that, so.
I don't have any questions. Thanks for sorting it out and approved to move forward.
Are they insured? Yes.
Yes.
Just saw the insurance.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is facility use agreement.
Okay, so yeah, this topic, facility use agreement, we've, in the past, since I've been here, staff has been in charge of, renting the facilities out for weddings, birthday parties, special events, all that stuff. This group, it's Burton Meering, and they operate as Simple Weddings. Over the course of the years, we've worked with them quite a bit. They're very familiar with our facility, but most recently, have expressed interest in essentially partnering with us for a facility use agreement where they would advertise, I'm trying to simplify this, but they would advertise our facility as essentially an opportunity for, it wouldn't be their facility that they run, but it would be one that they could utilize for weddings, special events, and all that stuff. So essentially, they would be on their own doing their own thing. They would rent the facility through us as a normal renter would, but it would be relationships where if we were approached for an event like that, we would direct them to these folks to talk to them. So in doing so, we were looking to offer a 25% discount on the fees for them to rent it. But in the case of this partnership, it would allow the facility to be rented more often. They've got a staff that specializes in weddings and events of these kind, whereas, for us, and as a city staff, we'd have minimized staff, plus we've got other events going on. For example, the softball tournament that was this past weekend, as well as the upcoming two, we typically wouldn't rent the facility because of those constraints. This would allow us to work with them and open the facility up so they could rent it as well. So they're very excited about it. They see the opportunity to do it. So essentially, we would charge them the rental fee at the discounted rate, as well as the cleaning fee, which cover the costs for the cleaning contract that exists. And then the last thing would be to have an escrow damage deposit for the year. And should any damages take place, we would pull from that. And then as far as their services, they offer linens and all sorts of wedding specific stuff that, I can't even think of at the moment, but that's what they do. They're very good at it. So we think this would actually increase the utilization of the facilities and help advertise it quite a bit more. So it's just a little bit of utilizing a local resource that is interested in doing it. So we want to make it work and see how it goes. And yeah.
There's no public comment, and I'd like to say, I think this is awesome. You and I talked about this a couple months ago. So you won't have to do anything. If they're handling the rental, your staff won't have to set up or tear down, right?
Yeah,
They'll do it all.
yeah, we'll essentially, each time we use it and each time they use it, we'll leave it like we found it.
Yeah.
And that way it's
But
there's gonna be some
instead of
growing
you
pains, but
having
yes.
to manage a wedding and have staff there to set the tables up and tear the tables down and do all that, they will take care of that. And we're only giving them a 25% discount.
Correct.
I think it's a no-brainer, a total no-brainer.
So if I could ask, I just want to make sure I understand, we don't really advertise that space from the city, right? I mean,
We do, it's on our website, we
our
do.
website.
but this company would actively advertise the space and then they would manage it. Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
So is there a active calendar that you would both use, that if you needed it, you would place?
So yes, that's part of the discussion. We've got multiple calendars. We've got a city calendar that we use internally. We've got the website's calendar, and then different things. But we're looking at most likely probably a shared Google Calendar of some kind that we'll put city events on, and they'll, anything that they have. And then there's always going to be we're still going to have a liaison on staff that works with them. And if they've got a question and they're worried that maybe something wasn't input, it'll just pick up the phone, give us a call, and we'll make sure it's communicated.
So there'll be a written contract, there's a cancellation clause if things aren't working out, there's a,
Absolutely.
It's in here. The contract's in there.
okay.
So we've got it in for a 2-year contract, and my initial thought is after a year, we're gonna have a sit down and say, hey, how's this working?
Mhm.
Because especially in the wedding business, we're already getting 2026 and 1 or 2 crazy 2027 requests.
Yeah.
But it's,
Okay.
especially with graduation season coming up and the building opening back up soon, we're getting a lot of phone calls.
comments?
Will there be alcohol use?
Yes.
You can't have a wedding without alcohol.
So there, well, it
I know, but
depends,
that's-
depending on the event, but there is insurance clauses and there's,
Okay, see,
yeah,
that
all
leads
set up for
me
that, yes.
to other questions.
Mhm.
So, I guess we are allowed to consume alcohol on the premises,
yes.
okay, and insurance. And as far as, any, schedule conflicting in schedule, I think you addressed that maybe months ahead of time with conflict.
Yeah, I mean, stuff occasionally gets overlooked, but they're, them being a private business, and again, with the city, we want to make sure that we're providing the best service and keeping the image of the city and their organization up. So, you know, stuff will come up. 9 times out of 10, we can work it out and we figure it out, but most of the time it's a lot of the conflicts too are the uses for our fitness classes that take place, and then sometimes games outside and weddings in a building, but that's just a parking challenge, which we typically work through as well, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. Excuse me. Also, it's gonna help our community, large weddings and receptions and the hotels, our restaurants. You know, we're gonna get a lot more exposure for Madeira Beach, and I think it's a great idea. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
I agree. Thank you. Next on the agenda is facility rental fee updates.
Okay, so in discussions with this organization and staff review as well as for the fees, we took a look at the existing fee structure and made some adjustments. Most of it was simplifying it. There were a couple of fees that were raised slightly. But the biggest thing, just a quick run through, but if you rent this room over here, the city center room, we're not gonna rent the patio out at the same time. So we basically made that those fees are combined. You're getting, raise the fee, I think it was $50, and then they got the combined thing. Same with the rec center. If we rent a larger room at the rec center, there's a good chance that somebody's gonna go outside and use the patio, vice versa. So we paired those up, simplified it. And if you're using the patio, the restrooms inside, we're not gonna rent multiple venues at the same place at the same time. And we just wanted to make sure it was clear. Plus, it made sense that if we were doing a 25% discount, that there was still some wiggle room for the city, so.
Makes sense.
Yep, that's pretty much, I mean, we can run through it if you guys want to, but overall, it's pretty simplified.
There's no public comment. Commissioners' comments?
Straightforward.
I thought so.
The one addition was this room.
I saw that.
Yeah. So their big need, they said that we do a lot of beach weddings. I probably approve 10 or 15 a week, months out. Looking at that, there's need for an indoor facility in case of rain. So what they said is set a price fee for this. I forget what it was off the top of my head, but most likely this room will get rented and then it won't get used. So if it rains, they'll be in here. If it doesn't rain, they will have paid to reserve this room and not used it.
So you took it from 200 to 100
Yes. So-
per hour?
Yes. They're gonna max it out at 2 hours.
Yeah.
This is not gonna be one of those rooms that we do food and drinks in. It's just come in, they'll set up chairs, they'll get married and then take off. So hopefully utilize that room over there
Yeah.
for the reception.
Do they get that money refunded if they don't have to use the room, or is that?
They don't.
They
And,
don't, okay.
and that's, I guess, in the wedding world, it's the cost of doing business, so.
Got it, thanks.
Thank you, Jay. Next on the agenda is city-sponsored fireworks.
All right, so this is the final 1-year extension request for the Master Power LLC, who we utilize for our fireworks. The, excuse me, the recommended dates for this would be March 15th, May 3rd, which is the city event, July 3rd, and November 8th. I did discuss July 4th with him this year. Being a Friday is a very popular one for their company, and based on the size of our show compared to many of the other ones, he recommended July 3rd as the date preferred. It's possible to switch to the 4th. He just said it might not be him. It would be somebody else doing the show, which again, that's who lights it is not really the concerning thing, but I know he's very focused on supporting us in our endeavors when he signs this contract. So that's open for discussion, but my recommendations were the 15th, the 3rd, and the 8th.
So there's no public comment, Commission?
I'd say July 3rd is good because it gives us an opportunity to actually check out July 4th in other cities.
I had a lot of public comment about July 3rd. They didn't have a problem with it. They thought it was a great idea. Less traffic, less congestion, you know.
Our
So,
deputies do like it as well.
The 3rd's on a Thursday.
Yes, Thursday evening.
You're gonna get pushback, but I guess everybody's getting used to it.
I think, Jay, this will be our 3rd consecutive. If we have them on July 3rd, this will be the 3rd or the 4th.
This is my thought. We're developing a tradition. People know Madeira Beach is a day early. And I personally, as a commissioner, have never had any negative feedback. And I've gone to them all and they're well attended.
yes.
The only negative feedback I've ever heard was one year, it was not, I don't think it was last year, it was the year before. And when there was some sort of malfunction,
And that's why
remember
you
that?
have to be here.
And everybody was watching and we were waiting for the finale and it didn't happen. But that was a total, I mean, and then he did some more fireworks to make up for it for us at the next.
He did.
So he made up for I'm good with the dates.
Sorry,
And I can say for the first time in February, and in my time doing this, that we have a barge already for the,
Yeah, I was gonna ask that.
yeah, Spieler's already offered.
Is it that one sitting out here now?
It is.
It's
He
ready.
said call him 30 days before he'll clear it, it'll be ready to go.
That's
So
awesome.
I'm really excited about that.
That's awesome.
Good.
Well,
I-
thank you.
For the record, I do get pushback.
On the
that-
3rd.
That it's not the 4th, but it's,
So
it
I
is.
love what Vice Mayor Taglerini said. It's a tradition.
Creating our own tradition.
It's a tradition.
Creating our own tradition, yeah.
All righty.
Thank you.
If there is nothing further, it is 9:31. We are adjourned.